Hey, welcome back to the Dynasty Grind for Dynasty League Football, dlffootball.com, whatever the website name is at this point. My name is Peter Howard, at PA Howdy on Twitter. This is a weekly YouTube and Twitch and Facebook, apparently, show where we talk about Dynasty takeaways from weekly events. It usually breaks down just to trade questions and conversations about who to trade for this offseason, and also increasingly becoming a conversation about rookies, which I have nothing to add on just yet because I haven't looked at them at all. But you're free to drop comments on whatever platform you're watching on. We try our best to answer them as we go. But that's the theme of the show this week. Russ Fisher, Dynasty Outhouse, the head of, I think, podcasting or something at DLF, is usually my co-host here, but he's going to be late today. So I guess we'll just see who drops into the window. Who could it possibly be that would fill in for us? Who knows? Jackson, we'll get to your question just as soon as I can. Real sorry for being late today. I was going to go fill up my coffee and get prepared and write some notes and be real professional today. But then I got talking to Zach about the salary cap and the real world conditions of NFL football that we usually don't pay attention to when we're doing fantasy analysis. And I am uncoffeed and slightly flustered, but we're going to get to it anyway. So welcome back to the Dynasty Grind. And let's do a show of some sort that's Dynasty themed. Sound good? Hey, Russ, how you doing? Who could it possibly be? Yeah, it's Zach Reed from Dynasty Dummies. I think I said it after I made it a mystery, so there we go. But yeah, Russ says he might hopefully be able to show up later in the show, but he couldn't make it to start with. So we're stuck with me and Zach. Sorry. Everyone.
I see how it is. I'm the second fiddle again. We got a tight end question.
We do, but I was going to do a whole preamble about how you're doing in your leagues, how many Hunter Renfro shares have you got, but it's fine. Let's talk about Jackson.
So many, Peter. Hunter Renfro to the moon.
Jackson G, my Dynasty tight ends are Dan Arnold, right? Dan Arnold, yeah. On IR, and Hawkinson looks like he will be out. Even if not, he's kind of underprojected this week. Do I pick up a Shaughnessy or Uzoma? And no, both are just kind of a bet on a touchdown, to be honest. I kind of prefer O'Shaughnessy in Dynasty just because, I don't know, he had an interesting role at spots this season, and I think he might be worth still rostering through the offseason. So that's the way I would lean, Zach.
I lean the other way. I think Uzoma is the better play both this week and long-term because you have seen him actually be pretty good in spots. And you'd have to go back a couple of years to figure out when he was good. But you've also seen Uzoma.
That's the thing. He's just been around forever. I don't think he's climbing in value or he's going to become a top 12 tight end.
I don't think O'Shaughnessy's going to either. I mean, you're talking about.
I think he's a little more likely to Logan Thomas. Not great, maybe, but positive. You know.
I guess, but I like the fact that Uzoma has run into 2 touchdowns in a game twice this year, and so you've got that. I mean, that's really what you're looking for is you're hoping to luck into a touchdown, and that's where I'd go.
Yeah, if you're looking for a tight end play specifically this week, which you probably should be, my mind's more on the off season right now. Then Uzoma's probably the play. They are going up against Denver this week, who've allowed exactly 0 top 12 seasons to the tight end position. But, whatever, I guess. Who's the Shaughnessy play for again? Jacksonville, right? Oh, yeah, he's Jacksonville. Forget it. Yeah, go Uzoma. It's fine.
Jacksonville is just a dumpster fire.
Don't roster a Jacksonville player not named James Robinson. Even that's getting a little tough. Yeah, Jacksonville's going up against Houston. We've allowed 6 top 12 tight end performances this year, but a lot of that, especially at tight end, is about the players you face more than the positional matchup. It is an easier matchup overall, but Uzoma's projected higher. I'd probably go for him. The reason I went the way I did, I've got O'Shaughnessy on a few different teams, and I'm just, unless I find a good reason to drop him, I'm probably going to keep rostering him. I think he's, off the waiver wire value. I think he's one of the more interesting ones out there.
And athletically, O'Shaughnessy was pretty good. He's the type of tight end that I like to throw at the back end of my roster. But
he fits the bill. Rays play ZU. Don't know how to say that. How you feel about stashing Denzel Moms? Denzel's mom, I'm sure, is a wonderful lady. I would love to have her involved in my fantasy team. Mims, I'd know. He's been droppable for a while now for me. Here's the thing, though. He's got draft capital, size, and interesting college production. Could he do something at some point, get signed by a team to be worth a second-round pick again at some point? Maybe. So it's really a question of who else would you roster? But I'm not eager to stash Denzel Mims. I don't think it's going to work out at this point. Anything?
No. I mean, I'm kind of with you. If he's on your waiver wire, I would look at if I've got deeper rosters, I'd look at what I've got on the back end of my roster and kind of be honest with myself.
I put it this way: if it's O'Shaughnessy or Mims, I don't know which way to go. Which one I would stash? Like either one could be worth a second, but either one I'd be rostering in the hope I could trade them at some point. Not that I have hope that their careers so far have been a misread or a misguiding. But thanks for the question. Clue 10123. I'm taking it. Derrick Henry plus Darrington Evans for a rookie 103 and Chris Evans. Which side do you like, Zach?
I like the Derrick Henry side. I don't think you're ever going to get what you're going to get out of Derrick Henry for the next 2 or 3 years from that rookie 103. There's
I don't know. Didn't you say there were a couple of running backs in this class?
There's a running back that I think could be a top 10. But Derrick Henry's still like the RB9, and he's been hurt for 4 weeks. Like Derrick Henry was doing things. The only player in the league that has even come close to the fantasy production this year that Derrick Henry put up per game is Jonathan Taylor. So, you're trading. I actually just traded Ezekiel Elliott and Darnell Mooney, which really hurt me to give up, to get Derrick Henry and a first. So that, like, if you're, I would not be giving up Derrick Henry for essentially a 22 first. I can't do it.
I would say, since we're pretty close to the off season, the fact that you're rating it a really early first makes it interesting, because first round picks aren't. Sorry, I'm trying to find a non-nerdy way of saying that. They're not linear. It's an exponential curve in that those top 3 picks a hell of a lot more value than a first. So to be fair, I don't think it's as far off as it might appear to a lot of people, because you're going to get a pretty high-ranked running back or wide receiver, or if it's a super flex, a quarterback. And so that's valuable. What I would say is I'm probably, especially if this is non-super flex, I'm not trading Derrick Henry for less than 2 firsts. If my team sucks, I want those 2 firsts, though. So if I can take that first and get him to add a player that's not Chris frickin' Evans that I like somehow, like shoot for a Rondo Moore, and I add something to my side that he thinks a little more valuable for this season or whatever or something, I would try and work with it, because that 103 pick is really interesting, but the value side's clearly on Henry right now. And that probably means if you can't sell him, then you're rostering him till he gives up the ghost. Unfortunately, that's where Henry is in his career, but Henry's definitely got more value right now. So you either need more for him, and I would try and do it in some subversive way where you're getting 2 seconds, where he doesn't have to give up a second, because that 103 is valuable. I like that. It's probably keep the Henry side. 1 QB. Yeah, there you go. I should read on.
You
Sorry
definitely
about that.
need 2. Yeah.
I need to get better at managing this thing. Apologize. Monty N. It's pronounced O'Shawn Hennessy, by the way. Probably, man. And I apologize to his mother and him and every NFL player. And it's not like I'm going to make an excuse for myself. I suck. I should be better. I'm just not. I struggle with names. I struggle with words in general. But that's fair. Like, it's the only reason I can say ETN is because literally a commenter just taught me to say the initials. It's the only way I got it. I've tried to learn 4 languages in my life, and I understood a lot of them, and I've never been able to speak one remotely fluently. Literally, I struggle with words. So apologies, but I'm trying my best, I promise. No, you're good. Honestly, Denzel Mons is a better name. That's fine. I knew what you meant. You're good. If you see my Twitter timeline, I don't get to call people out. It's fine. It's fine. Where was I? Yeah, how's your rosters going? You going to a lot of players? I'm going to none this year. Just completely own myself online. It's a rebuilding year, as they say.
I'm in 4 out of 6
Nice.
Dynasty. In redraft, I did pretty well because I do 0 RB, and so that had been, and I avoided the landmines of Allen Robinson and that type of player. So I've been lucky that in that respect. But in Dynasty, yeah, 4 of 6, and all of them backed into the playoffs. So most of my leagues, the scoring is, or the playoffs are set by the top 4 teams in record, and then the next 2 teams that get in via total points scored.
Yes,
And so, like, I have 2 teams that were 7-7, 1 team that was 6-8, and 1 team that was 8-6. That got in. So like it's not like I'm crushing it, but I also had a couple of teams that were, the second highest scoring team in the league, but still 7-7. Like it's just
what would you say is the unifying factor? Like, why are you making the playoffs? Why are you doing well? What was the trick to this year?
It was literally hitting on Hunter Renfro, and
That helped.
I have
right?
What?
Cooper Kupp for you,
Cooper,
right?
yeah, Cooper Kupp, Justin Jefferson. Like it's all of these guys that I've drafted since I've been playing Dynasty, and they've all just kind of come along and matured very well. And again, I avoided injuries, and I mean by no fault of my own. It's just kind of luck. I think a lot of this particular year, where you've seen a bunch of injuries to really high profile players, and you've seen kind of this rolling blackout of COVID, that a lot of what you're making the playoffs or being successful has been luck. But like I said, I've also seen a real big is variance the right word, where like I'm getting absolutely hammered being like the second or third highest scoring team in a given week and still losing because I'm playing the number 1 or 2. That's happened, week in and week out for me this year.
No, it's one of those things where I don't know how much it helps, because it doesn't help predict the next year, but it is interesting to see that, what happened this year, just to remember that it can happen, if nothing else. And, wide receiver usable weeks, for example, at every level, are pretty much off the charts. They're like 3-5% more usable than they are on average. But it's not really a wide receiver year where you had to have Kupp and Debo and Marcus Brown, although, they were all pretty clearly values this offseason. And, just to make sure I'm not victory lapping. Also, Juju. I said Juju a lot. I said Juju real hard. That didn't work out. Deontay Johnson's been hella impressive this year. But it's not really wide receivers win this year, because there's also running backs are presenting less usable weeks on a week-to-week basis. For example, like top 5 running backs are averaging 77% inside the top 12 this year of weeks, and the average is like 83. So they're actually underperforming. But it's not like a 0 running back year either, because even our 0 running back targets have gotten injured. It's like the sub of the sub of the sub. It's been such a crazy year for injuries and depth charts in general, that you can't really say. See, last year was clearly a 0 RB year. Like if you drafted 0 RB, you had a higher potential to win. This year, it's not 0 RB wins. It's like you said. Did you find the right non-injured players, and did you get just the right set of wide receivers? And did you not fall for tight end this year? Last year, Travis Kelce. This year, Travis Kelce's fine. He's doing great. But last year, he was such a difference maker. And that is so rare at the tight end position that we forget that even the guys like Travis Kelce can be good and not that level of difference maker this year. For example, top 5 tight ends this year, 58% of the weeks are finishing inside the top 12. And on average, that's 65%. So it's even less than usual in the top 5. I mean, Gronk was such a difference maker to start with, but you didn't draft him highly. So tight ends it hasn't been like a silver bullet for some teams this year. And we were going so hard, I think with ADP especially, at Kelce and Waller especially, that's been a letdown for a lot of teams as well. That's not that they did it wrong, because those are incredible players who all show positive signals. But I know it's nice to have the excuse. That's what I went too hard for Kelce and Waller. They're not difference makers. But the process was solid. They were good players on good teams, or at least good roles on one good team and one bad team. And it's just not working out that way this year. He's not pushing you over the edge like he could last year.
Yeah, this has been the first year in a few that it has been beneficial to play tight end the way I usually do, which is
Don't.
which is punt it, find players that I think are pretty good and find matchups that I think are pretty good and roll that way. And so it's been, a lot of Gronk and Cook and some Gerald Everett and it's been enough to get by. And the play that I think has really helped me out this year was because both James Conner and Chase Edmonds were being drafted later because nobody knew who was going to be the guy, and they're not really sexy names. I ended up with both
Mark
of them.
Andrews is a good one, yeah.
Yeah, and so you can just throw one of those guys in and call it good.
No, that comes to my mind because, I mean, this is my Dynasty life in general. I get like 98% of stuff that I feel very strongly about right, but that 2% is the stuff that matters. And like a good 40% of the stuff that I get right didn't matter. Like Kendrick Bourne doesn't matter, but I feel like they prove something with it, And it's like Kyle Pitts this year. This is kind of what I said the danger was. Like, his value is rightly high and it's not going anywhere. And you can take all the victory laps that you want on it, but this doesn't feel like we wanted it to feel. He's going to hit 1,000 yards this season. It's going to be a complete success across the board, and it's going to feel disappointing. His value will be unsustainable for his price, and it already is. And yet he's all green lights across the board. And those Travis Kelce seasons are just so rare, and we were expecting it with his draft capital, even in Dynasty. Even though it's Dynasty, so we're thinking long term, we were really expecting it this year. And even 1,000 yards ain't going to get it done. Sorry, Clue. Just to come back to this real quick, since there's an absence of questions. Yeah, that's weird, isn't it? No outhouse. I think he went around and told people not to ask questions. That's my suspicion. What would be a good point to trade? Derrick Henry, I'm assuming. Or is keeping him forever maybe fine? Keeping him forever is fine. You should always have that in your back pocket when you're doing trades. It's like, you don't want him, I'll take the points. You have to have that attitude, especially with a player that is good. Could he drop off and not be a thing from here on? Yeah, and it can literally happen to anyone. But we're definitely not going to see it coming. At this point, we just have to accept Henry as a force in the NFL with a shorter career arc because he's a running back. And that's why I said I'm looking for 2 first-round picks value. Since one of them was 1.03, if I can get 2 first-round picks with an early first as one of them, I'm definitely interested in selling right now. Now's a good time to trade them away. But if I can't get it, I'm happy to play. I will play Derrick Henry against you week 1 if you don't take him. And they're probably going to regret not having Derrick Henry if they're playing in week 1. So, Zach, am I missing anything there? Or would you like to add? Like, it's always sell running backs, but not giving up elite production just because of it, just because of timing.
That's the thing. I think a lot of people get caught up in the get younger and you have to sell your older players. And when you are struggling in a season, you have to sell your good players. Well, Derrick Henry's not hurting you right now because he is injured. Like, he's not playing for you. He's not scoring points for you. Mm-hmm. So it sounds weird to say he's not hurting you because he's not scoring points. But if you're trying to get a higher rookie pick in next year's draft, you don't want Derrick Henry scoring points if your team is bad. So right now he's fulfilling that end of the bargain. So trading him for less than what he's worth doesn't give you anything right now. To me, if you're bound and determined you want to trade Derrick Henry, wait till he comes back. Wait till he starts playing again. Wait till he rolls up his 200-yard games like he always does, and then look at your team and say, all right, is he helping me or not? If you're competitive, great. Like, roll with him. If you're not, at that point, you're going to get the value of Derrick Henry being on TV, rolling up, big numbers. You got the value of Derrick Henry being on SportsCenter, in the highlights where he's trucking a guy and stiff arm and rolling over. Like, so I think trading him now, I don't see much benefit to it unless somebody comes in and makes you a sweetheart offer.
I would say it's going to get increasing more and more exactly what you're saying. It's going to be a keep him for life increasingly as we go on from here. So looking for trades is a great idea. And that one, again, an early first round pick, it's worth exploring because that's a uniquely high value asset in a dynasty league, especially as we get closer to the draft. That's only going to go up. Derrick Henry's only going to go down. But ultimately, I mean, if you're just completely rebuilding, yeah, it's time to trade him. Don't get me wrong. It's probably a little too long to wait for his next 200-yard games. You've got a whole rookie draft in the meantime, so you should go find the best offer you can and trade him. But at the same time, don't panic trade because of timing. You just go look for the best offer that you can get. And if that's it, it's a judgment call. If my team's completely trash, yeah, I'd probably take it. I take the risk because I can at least trade that first round pick for another first round pick later and at least roll the value over a little easier than I can with Henry. But if my team's decent and I think I'm still going to be decent next year, then I'm a little more inclined to say, okay, we'll see if I can't use Henry's points or find a better trade later on. So it's kind of a judgment call based on your roster from here on out. But you're right. We're always kind of into sell running backs, always be selling running backs. But you need the right deal. And a lot of that is league and your team dependent. So a lot of the things I can tell you right now seem like they're not actionable enough. Because I could tell you something that's directly actionable and it'd be entirely wrong for your situation or your team or your league. So you kind of have to read the room a little bit. But ultimately, yes, you should be trying to sell Derrick Henry. If I can get the 103, I'm willing to take a little bit less. But not Chris Evans, man. There's just not enough of a chaser. That's me. I know Ray GQ really liked Chris Evans, so maybe I'm wrong, but I just don't see Chris Evans being that valuable. Hey, Johannes, how do you regular commenter? Appreciate it. Pat, how you doing? Is it too soon to call Trevor Lawrence a bust? I think so. Yeah, I think this. Yeah, I do.
Can I give you some stats? Can I give you some stats real quick?
You sure can.
3-13, 56.7% completion percentage, 26 touchdowns, 28 interceptions. That was Peyton Manning's rookie year. So, yeah, like I'm not saying that Trevor Lawrence is Peyton Manning, but he's been put behind the 8 ball. He's been in not a great situation. Obviously with their coaching staff, with the way that entire ship has been handled. Don't give up on him yet. But it has been ugly.
We tend to like to play those comparison games on both ends, and it's fair game. But here's what I'd say. We definitely haven't seen enough of him play, even if he was in a neutral situation, to really know for sure. It can go either way. That's the point of like a Peyton Manning comparison there. Right. Or, go look at Aaron Rodgers his first year playing behind someone else, or Patrick Mahomes not getting on the field except for that one game where he was good. You've got to read it in context, though. And I would say the fact that he's not a complete bust in this situation, which is like the worst dumpster fire to roll a number one QB into that I think I've seen, to be honest. Is positive, actually. And the fact that he's still competitive in is he bad? That to me overall says Trevor Lawrence is actually good. He's being good in the NFL. To be in this situation and not terrible, that's a good sign. However, I don't think that team's getting any better and he's not going nowhere. So is there risk? Yes. He's definitely more risky now because Jacksonville, we knew it was going to be bad, but this is bad. This is bad. So, yeah, there's a lot of risk there. But I don't think the player himself is a bust. And we've seen players outplay their situation before. And the fact he's in any way able to put up numbers in this situation, I think is overall positive for the player. So, yeah. Outside of that, trading him away, it's about the trade. So I have to throw out ideas. In a super flex, I'm probably not getting what I'd want for him. So I'm probably holding. Best guess as a generic answer. I'm not skipping over you, Joanna. Sorry, I clicked the wrong one. Joanna, yes, Trevor is a bust based on his situation. Yeah, and that's fair.
Yeah.
Like, this situation isn't getting any better. Even if you fire the head coach, that situation has been bad more than Urban Meyer for a long time. And I think you're perfectly right to say there is definite risk there. Even when that coach is out the door, right? We're done with this, right? Even Zach, fill me full of confidence now. Like, I don't have to do another year of Urban Meyer, right?
He has to be gone. He has to
Right?
be gone. But I don't know
Right?
how they haven't. I don't know how they haven't fired him yet. I mean, the old adage that where there's smoke, there's fire. I mean, things are cliche because they're right a lot, and people say them a lot, and then they become cliche. I mean, we're at a point now where he's just like lighting a new fire every week.
I'm still back in week 3. I was promised this guy was quitting. Okay. Like we could have had 8 weeks of at least trying to stabilize this situation. But yeah, even without that, there's clearly a systemic, this team needs, like, I don't know what it needs. I'm not a coach. I'm not an owner. I don't build businesses. So I don't know what it needs. But it's like Miami's not as terrible, but like there's been so much opportunity with so many good players coming through, and Jacksonville, that's them to a T. You've had Blackman, he had his own issues, but Allen Robinson, you've had so many decent at least players. James Robinson, you got lucky with him.
Fournette was there, was drafted by them. Like,
so much talent flowing through to so little improvement. There's issues. And that's all I can say. I don't know what it needs, but it's bigger than Urban Meyer, and I don't know that changes. Having said that, I can separate out the player a little bit. Like, James Robinson's still good, Leonard Fournette's still good, Trevor Lawrence is too. He's just so tied to the situation that Johannes is right. There's extra risk there, but I like rooting for players. I can't help myself. J. Mike Check from the Open Bar Podcast. How you doing? Can you talk about changes, tweaks? I can talk about my tweaks. Yeah, sure. You're taking with you into this Dynasty off season. I don't know I'm there yet. I do so much of my off season work in the off season that you didn't think about, leverage, evaluate this season. Nothing. I get everything right. Rookie process, archetypes, really anything that's been on your mind. Honestly, and this is not true every year. And especially where I'm fouling out of all my leagues really badly, it feels conflicting. But I don't think I can do much better than I did for predicting this year. Like, I doubt I am ever as accurate in league winning values, because values normally aren't league winning. But I got Cooper Kupp, I got Marcus Brown, I got Deebo Samuel, I got them all lined up. I had James Robinson higher in my ranks than everyone else. And I highlighted that this was a year that third year and later breakouts like Marcus Brown were more likely to happen. I don't know I can ever do better than that. Not that I won't continue to do well, but I really think I improved my process enough. Will I do that every year? No, I think this is one of the best years I'm going to have, and I'm losing all my leagues. But as for stuff I'm taking away, early thoughts are Michael Pittman's honestly worth reconsidering players with smaller sample sizes in their first year. He's the first one to ever essentially foul out his rookie year because of injury. To come back and show something decent. He's the first one I've ever witnessed, and really there's only one or two historical examples that were anywhere close. I still don't think I see the upside that Zach does, and I think he's a strong sell for me still. But Michael Pittman's an interesting one. Definitely didn't see it coming. Definitely need to look into what I can cling on to get more right in the future. Let's see.
The guy
I think
for
Leonard
me is
Fournette. Everyone was kind of out on Leonard Fournette, but like, that guy's a league winner, and we still aren't willing to say it because everything in the dynasty process says to avoid Leonard Fournette. It just does. Even if you like the player, like, he's too old, going to his second team after essentially being cut, and I don't think that exact situation happens again, and it work out well. But it's definitely worth reevaluating our willingness to accept that opportunity is king, not talent. And so Leonard Fournette's still talented, as well as some of the running backs that have moved on, and then we thought they were bad and they never got opportunity again, but actually they were probably good. And trying to reintegrate that into our process after seeing a year like every year, and I was going to go back to this with the Derrick Henry question up here. Like this year, same as every other year, the average age of top 12 wide receivers is 27 years old. There's like 3 in the top 12 under 25. Like the young players we thirst after are not the high scoring players ever, except for one year. But even this year, when we have so many good young players, they're not the guys. They're good, but they're not Cooper Kupp. They're not Deebo Samuel. They're not Marcus Brown. They're not any of that. And it's same with running back this year, which is decidedly dissimilar to the trend. The average age of top 12 running backs, I think, is 25. This year, it's slightly higher. I actually should probably pull that up, so I'm telling you an exact number. But it's because of Leonard Fournette and Ronald Jones not in the top 12, but still not being dead and having a role on that team. James Robinson being in the second year. So running back production is a little older this year. And I don't think that rolls over to being relevant next year. But like we were saying about just noticing things so that we know they can happen, this can happen. Older running backs can be the top 12 if they're the ones that are available. And I think some year that's going to come back into play. But that was a long answer because I didn't have any concise ones. Zach, do you have any better bullet points?
The one guy that's really haunting me, and I know he's on your list too of mea culpas or guys that you wish to, but Jalen Waddle, and yours was because of a small sample size. Mine was
an excuse, though, to be fair. Like I presented a caveat, but I still ranked him way too low. So I got it right.
Mine was because of the way he was used in college, because he was used as that field stretcher like Ruggs was. And that's the type of player, even Marquise Brown, those are the type of players that I generally steer clear of, because it's really tough to get a player that has that higher ADOT, which means that they're not connecting as often. I mean, it's a harder throw. The further you throw the ball, the less likely it is of being complete. The bigger the value is if it is complete. But those type of players really drive me batty in fantasy. And so watching Jalen Waddle in college, I had him as he was either my 6th or 7th. I had him behind De'Ami Brown. Like he and De'Ami Brown were like right in that cusp of the cutoff of players I didn't really want to draft was just below Jalen Waddle. When he ended up in Miami, I really should have been rethinking that, because that was not the position that Miami had in mind for him. You could see that because they already had Parker that was a downfield guy. They had a chance to put him with Tua and kind of reprise his, quick out of the slot, getting targets close to the line of scrimmage, being able to use his ability after the catch. And I should have reevaluated post-draft and been a lot more bullish on Waddle, and that is the one that haunts me. I've been trying to trade for him in season before he really took off, and it didn't work. I mean, we talked about this probably 6 or 7 weeks ago on one of the shows we did together, and I said, Waddle is that guy with Tua, because Tua needed that. Tua needed somebody close to the line of scrimmage who got open quick. And that's exactly the skill set that they have employed with Waddle.
Yeah, I think I just got two in the people wanted to team adjust him, and I'm so anti that because it's not true. And I've gotten better at not over correcting what I think of a player based on someone else using a bad process on that player, but I'm still not great at it. And yeah, you're right. Even looking at the ranks now, I'm like, that's a spiteful rank. I wanted De'Ami Brown higher. I wanted some players higher, and Jalen Waddle's the one that got pushed below him just because I already had Terrence Marshall under all of them. He was the one left that I could jack down a bit. And yeah, I think I got that wrong. The average age of running backs in the top 12 this year is 25.5, which is a clear year older than the average since 2018. So actually, I was exactly right. I'd take that. But yeah, and it should spike back down next year. That's the thing. And that's why, speaking of Derrick Henry, Magic Michelangelo Michael, I don't know.
Magic Michelangelo, you had it.
Magic. Would I give the same advice on CMC? No, and that's not just because you calling me out and having a generic process, and it's absolutely true. But also, I honestly don't think anyone wants to trade for CMC. I think Derrick Henry was so phenomenal to watch this year and last year, and he's so high T. I believe even in my leagues where they're mostly with people like Zach, there's someone that they'll get that dynasty feeling. Derrick Henry's had one injury, and he's a freaking monster, and it's true. We should value him there. I think CMC 2 years in a row of missing him, I don't think anyone wants to give up the value. I think CMC is just a stronghold because he has the same level of ultimate upside. In fact, more sure because of his target role. Derrick Henry, people are a little less scared of him. So I'd approach it the same way, but I don't think I'm getting what I want for CMC. I think Derrick Henry still probably can. The fact that that first trade's got a 1.03 in it says to me you can work with that. That's a good starting point. I think people start with like 2 low range first picks for CMC, and I don't think I do it. Am I wrong?
No, I think that's right.
I could be like if I'm wrong, I want to know just in case anyone's never.
I will tell you.
Normally, the question "Am I wrong?" is encouraging other people to say no, you're not. Just in case any of you all haven't watched before, people know to work me the exact opposite. I theorize, and I desperately, like Zach knows, to tell me if I'm wrong.
I will definitely tell you if I think you're wrong. But I think that if I am Magic Michelangelo, I am looking at this. If I have CMC, I think you're exactly right. But now what I'm doing is I'm taking your information. I'm looking at my other leagues, and I'm looking to see if I've got an owner in another league, another GM who has been disappointed 2 years in a row by CMC. And maybe you can get, because I talk about this a lot with the psychology. People get hurt. They take it personally when a player lets them down. You see this all the time on Twitter. You see people come in and say, CMC lost my week, or I didn't make the playoffs because CMC, and they internalize that. And so I think that right now is a good time to float offers for McCaffrey because of that psychological thing. I mean, because of exactly what you said, nobody's buying. So maybe if you come in slightly lower than normal.
Here's the thing, though. I don't expect the age to continue to be this high in the top 12.
But I'm having this. I was having this. The 2017 class was so good, and a lot of that. I know it's just this.
No, that's true. And I agree with you process-wise. If the value is there, I'm definitely going in on the older running back class because we want to go younger, but maybe they aren't there. Maybe there's just no good young running backs right now, except for Davonte Williams, of course. But I was having this call. I was listening to this conversation in my Discord and wondering how to approach showing how I walk this line, because that's what I do. I'm a middle sitter. I sit on fences and I just I win more than 50% of the time, every time. Because I'm a coward. That's fine. Whatever. I'll take the statistical average of winning rather than the gut feeling of winning an individual year. So that's what I'm saying with CMC and Henry. Like, you should be selling them, but if the value's right, I'm buying them. Because, and it's the same question in reverse for Davonte Williams. And I was trying to think about how to approach this with Discord. Watching them talk, so all making perfect sense. His numbers aren't that much higher than Dobbins and Akers, and why is he ranked so much higher? Perfectly true. That's correct. What I can tell you is he is rightly ranked in the top 5 running backs for Dynasty, because he's 23 years old. He's doing this in a full-blown committee with Melvin Gordon, who is no slouch, and that's the other thing that factors into this. Just because you're an older running back doesn't mean you're not good. Melvin Gordon's still pretty phenomenal. That to hold Davonte Williams to a committee, both must be pretty good at this point in their careers. Like, the talent's there. So even though you can't make there's really reasonable arguments for the fact his numbers aren't much better than other players that we didn't bump up as high as Davonte Williams. And you can't expect Melvin Gordon to disappear because it's no advantage for the team. I've made that argument. It's true. Here's the thing. More than 50% of the time, if you buy Davonte Williams at this increased value, it's going to be the running back you want next year. Could it be CMC and Barkley and Leonard Fournette again? Yes. Yeah, because they're still talented. But on balance, 50%, more than 50% of the time, it's going to be the 24-year-old running back that you really want. 23, I think he will be next year. So I'm walking the middle line of here. If the value drops on Williams because it's too unreasonable, then I'm buying. But also, if I want to win next year, I'm constantly sending offers to Davonte Williams.
Well, but the other point though that you made before the show that everybody else wasn't privy to is that we're at a pretty high saturation point of talent in the league. So and this class, like
I don't know. That's just a feeling, though. It's not like there is such a thing as a saturation. But I like the players now. I don't want them to be replaced. But I miss Cortland Sutton already. I don't want to have to start missing Elijah Moore. You know.
I think the saturation point, though, especially at running back, is real because wide receiver you've got three
it's
on
much
a field
more. Yeah,
time.
Good point.
So, but with running back, and especially because this class coming in, like I've started watching running back. There is one player, Breece Hall, in this class that I think is Najee Harris, Javonte Williams level talent. There are 3 or 4 other players that I think are decent that could be contributors to your fantasy football because I evaluate from a fantasy football lens.
Yeah,
I don't care about your NFL team. I am a fantasy football guy, and that's how I evaluate. So there are 3 or 4 other guys who I think could contribute right now that I've watched. But none of them are unseating Christian McCaffrey. None of them are unseating Derrick Henry. And so if you're talking about a player who can be a top 10, nay, a top 5, these guys have my vote over, you know, the incoming class and the guys that we've already seen. Again, Najee Harris and Javonte Williams accepted, perhaps Dobbins, although I'm a little more tepid than most people on him in terms of like a top 5. I think he can be a top 12 easy, but I think that you've seen Derrick Henry prove that he can be a top 5. You've seen Christian McCaffrey prove that he can be a top 5 just as a receiver, and he is lapping the field if he gets carries.
And Nicholas J asked an interesting question, and I had some time to process because I wasn't listening to you, Zach. Honestly, I think he's asking which do I try and trade first, and I love the question, by the way, because you running backs, of course, you're trying to trade them, but which first? And what should they try and get pick wise? I'd be trying to trade Jacobs. I don't think you're limited. You don't have to do it one at a time, but Jacobs is probably the most relevant right now, whose value is sure to drop off. Remember, he's real young, and he's going to be a top 24 running back probably easily. He's good. He's fine, but the team doesn't use him as a receiver like they could have, and they're not going to change. But Jacobs right now is kind of elite. You have more teams interested in Jacobs right now than you will for the next 4 months after the season. So Jacobs will be in my number 1 list. Hunt's injured, so he's kind of in stasis, and I don't know how many teams are interested in him because if they're not competing, they don't want running backs, and if they're competing, they don't want Hunt. So he's probably just kind of in stasis right now. And Chubb next, because I think his value is going to be a lot more stable from here on out, and a lot higher than Jacobs, to be fair. But I think you could probably get the same for Jacobs and Hunt right now, and I'd rather sell Jacobs. So that's what occurred to me.
I am on board with that. I think this is you know how you love to have that person tell you why you should trade for this player that they're trying to give you. This is when you go to your lead makers and you're like, oh yeah, Josh Jacobs is seeing targets now. He's great. You should give me a first and maybe a little bit. So
try not to do that. Just send a fair offer for a league deprived of running backs in week 15 to a team honestly that looks like they're gonna win. They're probably able to figure it out. But it's when you send those kind of messages, I try not to. But that'd be my order: Jacobs, Chug, Hunt, because I really think Chubb's just gonna keep chugging along as a top 12 running back overall. Yeah. So I think his value is fine. I think Jacobs will plummet a little bit after the season, and Hunt's just a floating value.
Chubb is the one that I would want on my team. So he would I'm more reticent to trade him than I would be for Jacobs. And there may be somebody in your league, exactly like you said, that's in a position where Josh Jacobs look really appealing.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Luke Patrick, someone traded JT for Henderson, Jacobs, and McLaurin, JT side. Well, McLaurin's interesting, but probably JT side. I take JT any day, but what do you think? Yeah, same thing. I think getting the wide receiver, who is legitimately talented, but I've had the CMC conversation a few times. TMC. There you go, TMC. His value's weird. He's got the potential of being a top 12 wide receiver. This was his best year to do it. That's the other miss I had. I had him on that list of players likely to break out into the top 12 this year, and he showed the potential. But again, the team isn't going to improve that much by next year. But he's still being really good in a terrible situation. So he's probably not a top 12 wide receiver going forward, but he's incredibly talented, but he's already 25. So his dynasty value is going to be below DJ Moore. And DJ Moore and him are both going to offer values without really that ceiling because they're good players who have that potential, but probably aren't going to hit it. DJ Moore because of touchdowns, Terry McLaurin because Washington. So because of that, just take the difference-making running back who's I think he's 4 years old. I think we've got another 20 years of JT in the league. Last time I read my dynasty ranks. But yeah, JT wins. I mean, it's fine. You've got Jacobs, who is young and is a top 24 running back. But especially heading into the offseason, just bank the elite asset and move on, If you,
no, I usually want the dollar. I usually want the dollar, not the 4 quarters.
That's fair. There is an argument to say if your team's trash and you're looking to trade, there's value in breaking it into 4 quarters and making 4 separate trades for firsts. But then you have to have an active league to do that.
League size and roster size and starting lineup size matters too. Because if you're starting 14 or 15 guys, you'd rather have the 3 starters than the 1. If you're starting 9 and it's a small league, then you'd rather have the hammer with Jonathan Taylor. So.
Patrick Sally asked, what were we trying to get for Terrence Marshall around draft season? Are you trying to trade him now?
Because a peanut butter sandwich would be really good.
Do you need the cheese with the ham sandwich? No. No, I actually have somewhat of an answer for this because I always kind of wish I rostered some players I didn't like because I would be more willing to trade them right now. And while his value is down, also that means anyone who did like him but didn't get to roster him, they're like, ooh, I can buy low right now, which makes a trade market for you, if you know what I mean. So it's an interesting time to start sending out Marshall offers. I would want first round. I want my first round pick back. That's what I want for Terrence Marshall. But since just sending offers for first round picks doesn't always work, especially as we get closer to draft season and people aren't interested in them, they want the shiny new thing, not the shiny thing that's a whole year old. I would start targeting those players I do like a little bit more, but value might be off. I think Rondell Moore is going to be undervalued this year. I think there's a chance we forget Elijah Moore's good. And if so, that's the guy I want to add something to Terrence Marshall and get Elijah Moore. Could I get Terry McLaurin or DJ Moore, who I just mentioned are good values and are definitely going to produce fantasy points, and Marshall I think is going to be worth even less this time next year. So that's the way I approach it. I go target wide receivers, depending on where they are on the teams in my league. Go look for who has a hanging wide receiver, essentially, that I like more than most. Go put a second-round pick with Marshall and trade for him. Outside of that, I'm looking for first-round value. Will you give me a first-round pick? And then once all 12 people say no, I start trying to go get those lower-hanging wide receiver values. I think Chase Claypool, really interesting prospect right now. I'd take that straight up for Terrence Marshall. And both could foul out, but I'm a lot more. I think there's a much higher likelihood that Claypool does something better in the future. Ayuk's already gone. People have remembered he's good. We can't do that anymore. But Claypool still might be hanging out there. And I was low on both Ayuk and Claypool. That's why I say Ayuk's not an option anymore. I was low on them, but I thought their value was too inflated. Not that the players weren't as good as everyone was saying. And that's worked out to be true because as we've seen with the 49ers, as the offense continued to work around, having this many talented players involved, they found a role for all of them. weird how good players find roles, right? And I think that'll happen for Chase Claypool and Juju and Deontay if they remain on the same team. Eventually, if the offense can find its footing, and Najee Harris, all will find roles. They just haven't all been healthy and do that yet. So yeah, I think Chase Claypool now offers an interesting value. That's not my first attempt, but I just named most of the ones on my value list, and I'll be trying to get one of them for Terrence Marshall. Outside of that, just trading for a first-round pick.
And I would even put another pick with Marshall to get a first. And
add a second.
I know we've talked about this before, and every podcast that I'm on, I talk about this, but I do not value picks after the first round until I'm in the draft, because I can always buy them on credit. If somebody's on the clock and there's a player that I want, I can say, I will give you my third this year and my second next year to get your second right now. And invariably people go, oh, a second plus a third is better than a second. And they give me that pick and I get the player that I want. So giving a second right now with Marshall to get a first, I'm willing to do that, because in the draft, in the second round, if there's a player that I want, I will say, here's my third, here's next year's second. I'll buy on credit. Next year, I can go get that second back. And that's how I play that. I just kind of roll that forward. I eventually you have to pay the piper, or the league folds and you don't. So I just keep buying on credit. You know, it's paying off a credit card with another credit card. That's we're all about that.
Yeah, I think
no financial advice is given on this podcast.
Not financial advice, no. And I think it's important, Patrick, to point out here, that's because it's a decent trade. I'm not saying Terrence Marshall is definitely terrible. I think he is. I'm on that side of it. I don't think he's going to be fantasy relevant. But there is a chance that he is. Like, he had a lot of really good analysts rooting for him this season and talking about how good he is. I don't need to rehash what was positive on his profile or why I disagree with it. But Michael Pittman going off this year, we talked about him earlier. He had a bad rookie season too, like relatively similar to what Marshall has done, even though he hasn't played and done anything so many weeks. His overall season's going to look similar. So the reason I would add a second is because someone can legitimately look at that and go, I'm getting a really young player who could easily do more in his second season, plus a pick for this older player who's more likely to score top 24 points. And it's a decent trade for both sides, because if Terrence Marshall, Michael Pittman's, and they get a second, they have done well out the trade. And you have done more bad. You've done slightly worse. But I honestly think it's a balanced trade. It's not like, and that's why I'd approach it that way. Also because, I really don't. I'm really still out on Marshall, but I think there's a reasonable way of reading that trade that the other person's like, I'm getting value here. I'm taking both sides are taking a risk, and both sides are getting potential value. So. Nicholas Urban hit a player kicker today. Oh, he did he? Cool. So it could happen soon. I mean, I guess I don't know what you have to do to get fired in the NFL. To be honest, if you're not a player, I believe celebrating things gets you fired if you're a player. But coaches, good job security, man. I know. Join us. Yes, Nicholas Urban is now kicking his kickers. Just trying to teach him how it's done. I guess good thing he isn't. He'll attempt to tackle the D2 soon. Yeah, that'll go well for him, I'm sure. We can only hope he tries that. Can we trust Miles Sanders next week against Washington? Trust? Trust is a strong word. Let me see here. I've got projections for that. So, what do you think about him long term, Zach? I've got him ranked 21st overall. He's a top 24 running back, which means he's not a flex play. You play most wide receivers over him. But for a running back 2, you could do a lot worse. He's fine. So yeah, that's where I'm at.
I mean, I think you've seen him over the last few weeks get a bunch of carries. I mean, last week especially, but over the last few weeks, you've seen him get a bunch of carries, which is nice. I mean, that's what you want, is volume at this time of year and healthy.
He's healthy.
Volume. Yeah. Who else are you trusting at this point? But
he's a talented player. He is.
As far as long term, most of the time, the community, everybody that you talk to, all the people who talk about Miles Sanders on Twitter, they're usually higher than I am on Sanders, except for there were about 3 weeks before the beginning of last season where he was like running back 23. And I was like, I am in, let's buy Miles Sanders. And then immediately 2 weeks after that, he was running back 11. I'm like, okay, no. This is not how this works. I don't.
I don't like this no more.
Yeah. Look, 23 was good. 11 is not good. He's probably going to finish somewhere 16 to 20. And so
Philadelphia's, I don't think of it that way, but it's another team where too many good players have passed through those doors with seeing net zero results. I mean, some of the players have turned out, like Miles Sanders wasn't everything we thought he could be, but he hasn't been helped out much by the team, and running backs are susceptible to that. Jalen Hurts is doing anything he can to be fantasy relevant, to be fair, but Jalen Reagor busted out, but I still think there was potential there in the right role. I mean, Davonte Smith is phenomenal as a rookie year. This is a phenomenal rookie year, and that's going to be forgotten a little bit this offseason, but it has been a good rookie year. Like Zach Ertz, Dallas got it, and they got to the Super Bowl and then just seemed to, the talent didn't matter anymore. Like, it's another team where I'm not saying I know how to build a team well, but I know there's something built wrong.
Well, and the other thing that is positive for Sanders this week, if it stays the way things are trending, is, and I don't mean to say this, that it's positive because of an injury, but if Jalen Hurts is still injured, having Minshew back there probably puts a little more of the workload onto Sanders, whereas Hurts takes off more often. So again,
as we want him to do.
Yeah,
run, Jalen Hurts, run.
Yes.
But yeah. Minshew isn't going to run as much. He's too busy, like, I don't know, dancing to porn background music or whatever it is that man does.
He's just fluffing the stash.
Someone said the other day on Twitter that if he didn't have the stash and the whole attitude, he wouldn't be as valuable as he is in Dynasty, and I have no apologies for that. Like, I'm here to have fun, and Minshew is incredibly fun. And actually, he's not an untalented player. Let's not forget that bit. He might be less fun if he wasn't as fun, but he's still a pretty decent player. Sorry, I'm skipping over the questions here. Ridley Truth, though, welcome back. Hey, guys, what are your thoughts on rookies that did? This is one of the annoying years where there are too many players doing well. It's hard to separate them out. I think I'm going to read the rest of the question. But had some hype coming into this year, like Palmer, St. Brown. He's been good lately. Had 12 targets the last 2 weeks, I think. 12 targets each week. Yeah, he's been doing good. Terrence Marshall's, I think he's busting out like we should have all known he was going to. I'm sorry. That's where I was. And I'm still there. I think Palmer is really interesting because it's another case of if Palmer wasn't competent, he doesn't do what he did last week. But it's clear he's not going to break out over someone who's already competent or, in fact, more competent or better. Or that's when we get to the talent question. So he's like a Corey Davis. He's like, unfortunately, who I thought could have been one of those more talented players. He's like who I think Robbie Anderson is. This is an above-average player that in a decent situation, he's going to earn volume and do well. But I think he's always going to be playing behind players that get the volume. St. Brown, same story. I think this has been a positive season for both of them, but they clearly, they need better players around them to help move the offense. They're not going to do it themselves. And if there are too many good players, they get dwindled out. Mark MVS or Alan Lazard, both shown similar type of upside. You know, they're good players. They're worth keeping on your bench. They're worth keeping in mind. I don't think they're going to take the league by storm. It's not an Adam Thielen situation. That guy did something special. And Palmer and St. Brown's doing something very special, above average, not above special. Right? There's probably a better way of saying that, but I think you know what I mean. So
I know what you mean.
They're not Donald Mooneying. Donald Mooney separated himself out into a different class in a tough situation by earning opportunity over other people and significantly high opportunity. St. Brown and Palmer have shown, like, unlike the majority of wide receivers, they can be competent in a higher role, but they don't necessarily earn it unless it becomes available. It's like KJ Osborne, same thing.
The one thing, so again, these players where he said that, I say he or she, Ridley Truther said that they had some hype coming in. none of these guys were players that I really liked. I guess St. Brown is probably the closest, and
they were interesting, like second tier wide receivers
But
for me, at least.
The interesting thing for me with St. Brown, and I think you're right. Like I think all three of them are, or at least two of the three, are good enough when their team is bad to earn some targets and be successful. But when everybody's healthy, they're not going to be in that pecking order. The one thing I will say with St. Brown is that he can be a slot receiver. And so if somehow Detroit manages to get the ship facing in the right direction and they get rid of Jared Goff and have an offense and they add a number one wide receiver, I think Amon-Ra St. Brown can still be productive in that second role, a la Calvin Ridley, a la Chris Godwin, a la the guy in Denver who Jerry Jeudy, like all of those, that type of player, even Hunter Renfrow, you can fix your face to say that. Like, I think he can be one of those guys who can be successful in that second role, and he can earn a second role.
I think the way I'll tell you, I'll say it this way. These are the type of players I am happy to have rostered because they have positives on their profile, but I'm putting them together with something and trying to get the players on the next tier up. Like, I've got Palmer. I think it's impressive. Maple syrup running through his veins. Tanho for life. Everything else. But I'm going to put him with a second and see if I can't get a Hunter Renfrow. Or a third and see if I can't get Hunter Renfrow. I'm going to see if a first and Palmer can't get me. How high can we go here? But that's what I'm trying to do with them. I'm happy to roster them, but I'm trying to tier up, is I think the way I've said it before. And if not, they're just Kendrick Bourne, Zach Pascal's, they're spot starters, they're decent players that you don't mind having around, but they're hard to roster at some points. Yeah. If Urban is gone and J-Rob finishes the top 12, he's got to really push it. Yeah, he's gonna get close. Then he has a good chance of being the primary back. He should do anyway. I'm sorry. He's like dirt cheap. He's proved he can do this through two rough situations. I mean, they don't make the same mistake as they did with their first round pick, right? Probably they do. But again, Leonard Fournette it. Don't forget that the player's good. That's where I'm at. We have a hard enough time finding players who can do it when they when they get jobs. Let's not discount them because they might potentially lose them for reasons unrelated to their ability. What are some good negotiation tips for trading this offseason? I have none. Honestly, every time I try and negotiate, I end up pissing the other person off. And same with the other people, by the way. There's almost no way of putting a comment on a trade that doesn't piss the other person off. It's something to do with the context. Even well-meaning comments come off negatively. Even like really nice people, they're just like, don't tell me things. So as with everything else with trading or buying, I just try and be upfront. Like, be honest as possible. Never try and convince anyone. If they feel differently, they feel different. That's fine. But mostly I send an offer that I honestly think is fair. John says send your best offer. And I don't know how high I'll go till I get asked, to be honest. So I try and come up with a trade offer that makes me feel uncomfortable to send. Like, I don't want it, but I want it. And I feel like that's the line. And then I send it. And if they reject it, they reject it. I don't have great negotiation tips. Zach, do you have any?
Oh, see, this is
Leo Segura's notebook thing and stuff, right?
Well, and that's I said this is where we really need Russ, because if you're giving like off-season trade tips, it would be Russ. I mean, he's the trade addict. He's the guy. He's actually who I listen to get better at trading. But for me, and this isn't going to help you this offseason, but I try to keep track of my league mates. I try to keep track of their tendencies. I try to keep track of what they make for trades, whether they're looking for picks, whether they're looking for, those stud running backs, whether they favor young wide receivers. And I keep track of that. And that's a Leo Pasiga keeps notebooks. And he got me, that was when I first started. I listened to a lot of Leo, and it got me thinking about the psychological part of this game. And so I know a lot of my league mate tendencies. I know when I can attack them. I know that what I can entice them with. And so if I'm looking at my roster and I see I have 5 or 6 young receivers that I can't start all the time, and I know I've got a guy in my league who is willing to give up picks for young receivers, that's where I'm headed. And so that is, I think, my best advice in terms of trade negotiations is not necessarily negotiations proper, but it's understanding who you're negotiating with, understanding where they're coming from, where their team is. Because if you get a trade, I mean, Spock, put yourself in that position where if you get a trade that doesn't help you at all, then like, where's the negotiation going? It's not. So if you understand the people that you're playing against in your league, and you understand how their teams are put together and how they put their teams together. I use this as an example, but if you throw a 2nd round pick or a 3rd round pick or a 4th round pick in a trade with me, that doesn't count. That's just a nothing for me. I don't even look at it because I don't care about that. I don't. And I know that there are players like Kyle Lebrecht, who was my co-host for a long time. He loves those late round picks because he loves to have 4 or 5 or 6 darts to throw, because he's always got guys that his cheat sheet kicks out, and he does very well back there. So I know that I can go into a trade with Kyle and send out, those. I know that I've got guys in my league that are Jets fans, and I can sit there with Zach Wilson, or I can sit there with Elijah Moore and get more value for those players just because of the laundry that they're wearing. And so I think to me, it's a lot less about the trade negotiations as it is understanding who you're trading with. And Russ will tell you, because I've listened to him long enough, just make trades, just keep making trades, and cascade. Don't think of trades in a vacuum. Make a trade, because you can always make another trade to get yourself out of it if you didn't like that trade, and you can make another one to get yourself out of that second one. And so those are the 2 biggest things, I think, to me. And that's one of the things that I'm starting to really try to get better at is I for a long time would never offer trades. Like I would, every 3 years, I would revamp my team by trading a whole bunch of players into a draft class. And that's how I would rebuild my team. I'm starting to try to make trades in season, trying to offer trades. And I don't need a negotiation personally. That's another thing that if you know your league mates, if you send me a trade, I don't want to go back and forth 15 times.
Most people don't.
That's not fun for me. Like, I don't like that haggling. If you make me a good offer, I will accept it. If you don't, then I will probably reject it. And if it's not even close, then I'll reject it without a comment. We had a trade the other day that I made in our league where the guy sent me the trade. I snap accepted it. He immediately came in the chat. Jacob Bittner came in the chat and said, "Man, I'm second guessing myself because you accepted it that quickly. I wish I'd put something else with it." And I said, "Well, if you had, then I would have rejected it that quickly. Like, I don't, the back and forth doesn't interest me." So
no, as far as the actual negotiations go, like Zach's saying, don't try and reinvent someone else's worldview. If they think that's fine, just accept it. You can say, "I was thinking this," but then move on. Don't try and convince someone of something else. As far as the actual negotiations go, no one has ever convinced anyone of anything, ever. Like, we debate and we might give some people to think about, but no one's ever left the conversation going, "I've completely changed my opinion on that." It's a lie. And trade negotiations, doubly so. Just make a note of it, come back and make fun of them later. But no, be honest, forthright. Honestly, negotiations, like Zach is saying, go much better if you are used to talking to each other. So just encourage general chat in your league as well. But as far as trade negotiations go, I think the number 1 rule is just don't try and tell someone they're wrong. Don't try and convince them that actually Ezekiel Elliott's worth 3 first-round picks, whatever it is. Just don't try and convince people of stuff. Except if a trade can't be done, fine. Don't sweat the small stuff too much. A third, second round pick. Sometimes you're just going to have to bite that if you want to trade done. Remember what the heart of the deal is. And if it's not an outright yes or no for you, it's probably a no. Tony 187 lost bye week thanks to many players disappointing. I do not think you're alone. I think that's most of us. Now all I can do is hope they turn it around this week. True. Half point PPR bench 2 J Rob CEH Mixon J Will, is that a new one? Davonte Williams. Okay. CeeDee Lamb, Hill, Metcalf, Chase, Mike Williams. Got a bench 2 of them. Which do you think?
I'm working on it.
That's a long list.
That's a lot of.
Off the top of my head, I'm guessing that's Tyreek Hill as well. I think Mike Williams is the one that stands out to me first. 2 high variants. I'm not benching them. I'm not starting them ahead of any of those wide receivers, I don't think. So, yeah, I bench Mike Williams. I'm probably CEH. I can't decide between CEH and James Robinson.
I think it's probably, for me, it's Robinson and Mike Williams. Because I was listing the players that I would start, and I got Chase, Mixon, Lamb, Hill, and then CEH. You know, honestly, Metcalf may be
Metcalf's a little bit of a hairy one, but if I'm going to play a hairy one, it'll be Metcalf over Mike Williams.
Yeah, that's
you know
fair.
what I mean?
He's
got the abs. He's got the abs. A quicker way of going through this is I start wide receivers a tier below in overall rankings above running back. So a top 24 wide receiver starts over a top 15 running back, kind of a deal in a flex situation. And that's the way I run through it. I'm pretty sure James Robinson's higher than Clyde Edwards-Helaire this week. That's the only thing. Yeah, CH is actually over James Robinson. So I think you're right. James Robinson and Mike Williams would be my sits. But, check back Friday. Start sit questions, Really, truther, which side would you prefer on a contending team? But being honest, not as stacked as others. Brady, Zeke, Pollard, or Baker, McLaurin, and a late first. I would take McLaurin and a late first.
Ooh, I don't think
it's a dynasty team. If you're trying to win, you take the Brady side. But if you're just a contender and you already like my team kind of sucks, I take the value side, which would be McLaurin on the first.
Yeah,
disagreeing.
I think I'd take one more year of Brady and then whatever I can get for Zeke and Pollard over Mayfield, who I don't think is very good.
No,
so you're hoping he's going to be a QB2 as opposed to Brady, who you've got this year as a QB1, next year as a QB1, and then right off into the sunset. I like McLaurin, but I think you can get McLaurin and a late first for Zeke and Pollard. So I'd rather have Brady plus whatever I can get for Zeke and Pollard if I'm making a trade. And again, if he says contending, you're not contending with Baker and a late first.
I was putting a lot of emphasis on the not as stacked as others. It feels like you're in the playoffs, but you're probably not winning. In which case, Brady's probably the highest value asset as a QB1. But I start trading for wide receivers in first. But honestly, Zach's got a good point. So it's probably a pretty even trade in that way. QB needy team. Next year's QB class seems underwhelming. Yeah, but what do we really know? Look at this here. Who's the best QB trade target? Tua.
Yeah.
That's a
really good one.
Yeah, especially in Dynasty. I mean, like we were just saying about Brady, he's probably a little underrated, the older quarterbacks who are good. But I would go Tua first. He'd be the first one I try to get trades on. I actually ended up trading him away in low Superflex because I'm selling out the teams, and he's just a high-value asset because everyone in the league's like a Dynasty hardcore, and they all know. Like, I'll trade you for Tua. I'm like, all right.
I think it's another guy that's being a little bit undervalued right now because he was hurt last year, and he's still kind of got the lingering effects of the injury this year. He hasn't run as much as Prescott. Because I think Prescott right now is a top tier quarterback going in that second tier.
I forget about because he's been that for a while now.
Yeah.
But Dak's a fair one. I was also wondering, is there a chance that people don't like Mac Jones because it's Patriots and he looks like how he looks, and he's not gonna Patrick Mahomes up the league, and he's not Tom Brady, but he's gonna be a legitimately young quarterback who puts up a lot of numbers for a number, like little underrated because of that whole thing.
Yeah, I think that's
like
a good
if
one.
Mac's cheaper than Tua, I start with Mac.
Yeah, he could be that Kirk Cousins where nobody likes him, but he's always a top 12 quarterback. Because I think you're gonna see Mac Jones because he's been so efficient this year. That's exactly we're literally seeing the blueprint that Belichick has for his quarterback. I mean, it's what you saw with Brady, where Brady came in and everyone's like, oh, he's a game manager. He's a game manager because he was only throwing 20, 25 times a game. I mean, it's not 3 like Mac Jones last week, and everyone's going to make a big deal out of that. But like he's been exactly what they hoped. He's thrown 70% completion. Mm-hmm. Eventually, they're going to dial up. They're going to the team will shift. Right now, their defense and ball control. Eventually, they'll shift. They'll add some pieces around Jones, and they'll open it up a little bit. The playbook will get bigger, and all of a sudden he's going to be throwing 30, 35, 40 times, and then you've got a perennial top 12.
He's not Brady, and no one's saying Brady was a product. Like, I don't know how that works, but I do know that the advantage of this is if you find a guy who thrives in that system, there's nothing that can the system is set up for having not the best players. Like, you manage with decent players, and he's already putting up top 12 numbers. He's not going to win a bajillion Super Bowls, because Brady is a big difference maker. But for fantasy, that could be underrated too. So yeah, Tua or Mac, depending on which one's cheaper in your league. And I really think that's going to be a league by league thing. Probably whoever has Mac is not fooled. To be honest, all the people that don't like him as much as they should probably don't roster Mac. But it's worth it. It's a thought I throw out. Nicholas J, again, I don't know why I keep saying the J. I've been talking to you all night. I keep watching Hall and I don't see anything special, but with Walker and Spiller, I see more talent and flash. Am I missing something with Hall? That's a you question. I don't know yet.
Yes, you are. So with Breece Hall, I think that he does absolutely everything that I want in a running back. He's not necessarily a home run hitter, which is, I think that's something that people get so caught up in, because you see Isaiah Spiller take one to the house, or you see Walker take one to the house, but Breece Hall, every single time he touches the ball, it's a double. I mean, like, he's so good, and he's such a good pass catcher. He just does absolutely everything. He plays with pace. I mean, it's just fantastic. I think with Walker, what you're seeing is he's going to be a very good ball carrier, but he's not going to catch the ball. They're not going to use him as a receiver. And I'm going to fight this battle all through the offseason, because it's the same thing I said about Nick Chubb, and everybody was like, Nick Chubb can catch the ball. Yes, he's physically able to catch the ball, but there's always going to be someone on his team better than he is at doing it. And the NFL is not very creative. They're going to use players the way they've seen them used and be successful. And Walker has not been used as a pass catcher. And so to me, it's Breece Hall is a clear number one. And I had him graded out right around the same as Javonte Williams and Najee Harris this past year. Spiller is in that next tier down. I really like him. He is a receiving back, can do kind of both, but he gets hit a ton at the second level. Like, he comes through the line and he's great, and then all of a sudden he pauses to try to figure out where he's going, and he gets absolutely wrecked. And at the next level, those guys are going to be 250, 260 pounds, and that's a recipe for danger. Again, not that he's a bad player. I think he's going to be a very good player, but it's going to be really dependent on where he lands. I see Breece Hall as being a guy who probably gets drafted and takes over a backfield. So
you're saying there are faults with the other two, which are fine, but like, he's asking what's he missing with Hall, and as someone who, these are fictional names as far as I'm concerned, like, what should he go look for to see? Like, is there a particular style of run or particular style of situation? What's he missing?
Yeah, so watch what he does. Watch what Breece Hall does to turn a defender's hips. And that's one of the things that gains him extra yards. So you'll see Spiller take an 80-yard run every now and then, but you'll see Hall consistently rip off 14, 16, and it's because he gets to a defender, he'll plant and turn the defender's hips, and as soon as he does that, he's gone the other way, and then uses angles. He's got really good feet in traffic. Again, like he feels like he is slow, and he feels like he is almost too patient, but it's really playing with pace. He really sets up defenders. It's the same argument that I heard people with and David Montgomery, another Iowa State guy. So like they're coming out of the same place, but it was the same argument with David Montgomery where everyone's like, oh no, he's too slow, but a lot of it is patience and setting up defenders. I think he's actually faster than
it sounds great.
Yeah, like
and from his tape evaluation, it all sounds so amazing. But I think I understand the principle here, which is it's not sometimes how fast you can go, but how you use your speed.
Yeah,
even if he is faster than you think he is, like I don't know.
And the big negative I have is sometimes he is too deliberate, and I will fully cop to that. But more often it's patient, and there's a fine line between being too deliberate and being patient. And I think more often than not, he succeeds being patient as opposed to fails being too deliberate.
Well, there you go. Go watch him waiting in line. Just test his patience. Breece Hall is running back 1, says Joannis. She seems to be on the same page.
She got it.
As you. I missed out on a first and a second before the trade deadline 2 weeks ago. Trade deadline sucked, man, because I didn't want to be short on running back. Yeah, that's rough. With Hunt and Chubb, that's rough. Sorry, this year sucks. Like halfway through this year, like at the start of the season, I called this was going to be a real rough year for variants and players missing time, and I thought I'd gotten it wrong because I thought there would be like a different COVID announcement every other day. And halfway through the season, I was like, that hasn't really happened. But looking back, like it has. It freaking has.
It's coming even more so the next few weeks. It's gonna
It's been thick and heavy, man. Yeah. Just blame variants, move on. But you got a 3rd and a 7th trade. I have a league where I'm selling out, right? I'm fully on to next year. I have been for like 3 weeks now. I only have 2 4th-round picks. Like it's gonna, I don't know how I manage that, but I have traded for AJ Brown, CD Lamb. I've gotten rid of my running backs and moved to wide receiver. Picks are harder to get in an active dynasty. Everyone wants picks. Everyone knows that picks are a thing. So you kind of, I think I'm getting more creative. I got Noah Fant. Younger players that are maybe a little undervalued. Luke Patrick, Breece Hall looks explosive compared to other running backs in his class. Would you say explosive?
I don't know if I'd say like if you want explosive, go watch Kenneth Walker. Like okay. Kenneth Walker is unbelievably dynamic. He looks like he has been shot out of a cannon. And if you watch from his early stuff, so 2019 and 2020 at Wake Forest, as opposed to this past year at Michigan State, it is a totally different, like before at Wake Forest, I thought that he didn't look particularly fast. He was doing this weird thing where you ever seen a cat creep up on something? Like he would do that as he was getting the handoff. But this past year, he's just like, I am going 100 miles an hour through the line of scrimmage, and it doesn't even matter. I'm just going to hit the hole. So if you want explosive, go look at Kenneth Walker. If you want the best running back for fantasy, I think you're going to look at Breece Hall.
All right. Everyone's Chubb. Yeah, they really do. Like, I really thought I'd get an age discount on this year. It didn't happen. And no one's fooled. No one is fooled. Everyone has done the mistake of watching Chubb, and they're like, no, I'm good. I'm good.
He's the best ball carrier in the NFL. He's so good.
Nicholas also says Kyler and Diggs from me most. They want Kyler and Diggs, I guess. Yeah. Everything's trade.
I'd shop Diggs before I'd shop either of the other two, but
I would show up Diggs, but this has been a rough year, so I really have to see the trade.
Yeah.
Kyler's interesting. Top 5 QBs are always sells to me like running backs. I seem to get, if I can get a top 5 QB price in a super flex, ideally I sell every time. But I had Patrick Mahomes at one point and was trying to apply that. No one would pay up for Patrick Mahomes, and don't force it. But if you're gonna get a top 5, like a legitimate top 5 quarterback like Kyler should bring the world. Breece Hall is the only running back in 2022 who consistently makes defenders take angles too slowly. He's always catching them off guard because his speed is deceptive, or he deceives with his speed.
I gotta get Johannes on the Dynasty Dummies podcast. We'll get her just
definitely.
Doing some film breakdown. It'll be fantastic.
Me, I just listen to Film Grinders and then I switch the words around a little bit. Like speed is deceptive. No, deceptive with speed and profit. Good point, Left. I like my players. Yeah, you good. Sounds like you got good players. I wouldn't be panicking. Went too biased in that aspect. Learned that with getting all these Raiders, just because I'm a big fan. Yeah, being a fan.
But did you at least get Renfro? Did you at least get Renfro?
He owns Ruggs, and good point on that trade and picks. Yeah. How do you factor fake salary into trade values like auction and cap leagues? I go and talk to John Bosch.
Yes. John Bosch and Kevin Cotillo.
I've tried to consistently figure out auction leagues, and it's just I don't need another thing. So I just fact check everything with John Bosch. It's literally just how his brain works.
People, I shouldn't say this because every time I say this, everyone looks at me like a heathen, but I don't like auction salary cap leagues. I don't enjoy them. I
like vanilla leagues. I don't know why everyone's trying to make it more complicated. It's I like this game, and everyone's like, let's make Clue also life. And I'm like, no, I like Clue. I just like Clue.
And I would never like. I'm glad that you enjoy it. I'm glad that Bosch enjoys it. Like I'm glad that people enjoy it, but like it doesn't. That doesn't do it for me.
I try because it's interesting to me, and I love games. But it's like I'm really good at the other thing, and this one I'm confused.
But I don't like
feeling confused.
If we're gonna give Ben something actionable, I think what I would do is I would look at if it's a league that has been going on, I would go look and see what the draft picks went for in terms of cash and try to assess, about what, like what the 101 went for, what the 102 went for, what the 103 went for, and try to figure out kind of a rough value, and then figure out when I'm trading, what pick I want to trade, and then kind of assess where that is in terms of your salary cap.
Ben, to be real clear, that was a legitimate recommendation. I'm not just making fun of myself, which I love to do. I literally listen to everything John Bosch has to say.
At John
he
Bosch,
will laugh at me, but he's a smart player, and especially with auction and salary, I really don't think the second none. He's not a part of DLF. It's not like an in-company recommendation, although I'd love him to be. He's just started regularly podcasting a bit again. For the DCC Dynasty Trade Calculator Network, and Ms. Bosch. I see you, Russ. It's okay. Stop waving at me. He's like he's one of those wacky wavable arm guys down here.
Do I have a button where I can let him in?
But
no, I don't. I don't have
at
that
John
power.
Bosch _FF, part of the DCC network. He does podcast a little bit. He doesn't make a lot of content, and he's not going to answer every personal question. But he does put out a lot of stuff. He does do a subscription, like you can. He's a consultant, and especially for that, I would pay up. If John said, I'm only answering that if you pay up. It's not a lot, and John, just to learn, John's a legitimate follow.
Go in your podcast app and search salary cap league or auction league or John Bosch, and you'll come up with like 6 or 7 podcasts with it. This is great.
I know. He's doing all 3 of the dance moves he knows. Russ is backstage. We're gonna bring him up here. Hey Russ, how you doing?
Hey,
Russ,
I was actually recording the other podcast that John Bosch does for the DLF family of podcasts, Dynasty Game.
He does do one for us now. Okay, cool. What's that called?
Dynasty Game night, which will be out as soon as I am not lazy enough to edit it.
I forgot that one because you all don't like. When
We
does that
barely
come
ever
out?
do it. Yes, we
barely ever do it.
Night.
Right.
Oh yeah, there's that guy with the silky tones that does the outro.
Russ
what did I miss?
league shames people. He
I
hates
like
people
him
that
better
play
than
that
Josh
way.
Palmer.
Is Tyler Johnson the same as those guys like Palmer? No, I think I genuinely think Tyler Johnson could be one of those players that earns a role by himself. He's buried behind 3 generational fucking players. Like, I mean, just he'd good night. Probably never gonna happen.
Tyler Johnson to the Patriots. Mac Jones, Tyler Johnson to the
never gonna
moon.
happen.
Every wide receiver to the Patriots ever.
We don't get nice things, is the thing.
So
Tyler Johnson is never going to do anything, but if he were to do anything, it would be so much more than Palmer can do. But Palmer is very likely to hit his floor.
I have never been as disappointed,
by the way,
in my life as I was in that draft.
I just want to be in that room. I just want to punch someone in the face. I just want to be in that room when they were interviewing him to punch someone in the face. I just want to hear him out. I just want to hear him out. What could he possibly have said in that interview process? Like, Rashad Bateman's in the league. Everyone fucking loves him. He's a first-round freaking pick. He's balling out. He played second fiddle to Tyler Johnson. Like, what? I just want to punch someone in the face. I mean, I just want to hear him out. I just want to hear him out why they didn't like him. Who did he punch in the nuts? That's all I want to know.
I have never been as disappointed as a Patriots fan than that draft, where the first round, the picks are falling. I'm like, they're going to get Justin Jefferson. All of a sudden, Minnesota takes Justin Jefferson. Belichick says, nah, I'm out of the first round. I'm moving back. And then the 4th round and the 5th round, I'm like, Tyler Johnson, this is going to happen. And then the Bucs took him. I'm like, well, the Bucs are brilliant with receivers. I mean, it's a great pick, but
every time he's on the field, he don't get me wrong, he's not better than Antonio Brown or better than Mike Evans. He's not showing that, but
Scotty Miller.
As a really deep late round pick, when he's on the field, he catches passes, he puts up yards, and the commentator every freaking time is like, that Tyler Johnson kid, where did he come from? Exact same place all the other good players in the NFL came from. Why are you all pretending like he's from nowhere? Why? I'm gonna go get coffee. Could you guys talk?
Did I miss something that made him like this right now, or was this just now?
It's been building. I mean, we've had a good show, but there were a couple of rookie questions, and Peter's not ready for rookies yet, and so I think that he needs to go get a coffee. He'll be good. He'll be back.
And because it seems like you guys are pretty far behind on the comments.
Yeah, but I talk a lot. That's probably why.
But the one that just Johannes just brought up. She dropped Johnson for Brevin Jordan, and he's another one of those guys. I want to know what happened that made Brevin Jordan fall in the draft.
I didn't think he was he's just tall,
but he was good.
Oh,
Miami tight ends, baby.
No, I didn't. Yeah, I didn't think he was that good. But that's I understand the stash, but he wasn't my cup of tea.
Yeah, but if it's a tight end premium, he's starting to do well now. So I'm all for it.
Why did you do this to me? Why are you like, I know what will get PN. Like, why do the Bucs hate wide receivers? Someone explain that one to me. What do they like? Justin Watson is what happens when Cooper Kupp gets drafted to the Bucs. You all realize that. Going back even more years, like that's Cooper Kupp getting cut.
The Buccaneers broke.
Take a sip of the coffee. Don't just go get it. Actually drink it. Like,
yes, boss. Joannis, I've noticed if I like someone more than I'm more likely to lose trade by a little. Yeah, definitely. You should always be willing to bite the bullet. If you're fighting over a 2nd and 3rd round pick or that kind of value, ultimately you either don't believe in what you think you believe in enough, or you're losing it for something that's not worth anything. Just out of fear. Go all in. On the opposite end, I think North Korean peace officers won.
She's saying that if she likes somebody, she's more willing to give a little bit in the trade, and if she doesn't, then she makes things more difficult. And again, this is part of the thing that I love about fantasy football is that psychology. It's being able to have that interaction with all of your league mates, being able to kind of understand what makes them tick and not piss anyone off, and it makes things easier for you in your league.
Tyler Johnson's better than Rashad Bateman. A trade I'll make it difficult. Yeah. I think Zach's got it. Basically, for me, a good trader is also a slight, charismatic and likable. But I could be wrong. Yeah, actually, Russ, since you're here, someone was asking for tips on how to negotiate in trades, and I was like, I just don't. I've never found a comment not to piss me off or to piss them off, so I don't really do negotiations. Do you have anything on that? Like, how do you speak to people or negotiate literally?
I mean, that the awful answer is it's different depending on who you're talking to. But I mean, like, there's a certain few things you don't do. You never tell someone why the trade is good for their team. You never disparage the players you're trying to trade for, because that just makes you sound like a jerk. This guy sucks. You should totally give in to me. I don't. I'm doing you a favor by getting him off your team.
I said when you never try and convince anyone of something. Like, that guy sucks or this guy's great. Like, no one's gonna change their mind based on someone who wants to trade with them.
Yeah, like, just have an honest conversation with people. Like, you don't need to be sneaky about anything. I think that's the big misconception. Like, it's not, this isn't The Princess Bride. This isn't Dread Pirate Roberts and Vicini having a battle of the wits. Like, you're just sitting there talking to each other. Both goblets are not poisoned. Sorry, spoiler alert if you haven't seen a movie that's 30-something years old. Oh my God, 40-something years old. We are old.
Why did you just...
No, 30-something. It was in the 80s. Okay. Regardless, old.
Yeah. I read the book. That's how old I am.
I read the book well after I saw the movies, but I
went to the difficulty of reading a book.
I did read the book.
That author sucks, by the way, but has some remarkable stories. And just the author sucks, but the stories are great. It's really weird. The book
was very, very weird.
Misogynistic as all hell, to be honest. But anyway, but the stories are awesome. Trade advice.
Yeah, that's really it. It's just talk to people like people. It's not it doesn't need to be a boardroom. It's really just, you're not going to do anything you don't want to do, and honestly, you don't want them to do something they don't want to do, because that leads to them not wanting to trade with you anymore.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. You're trying to make a trade good for both teams.
Yeah, and especially because, like, in the end, if you're like, oh yeah, cool, no, we both left that good, the next time you send a trade, they might just be like, okay, yeah, cool, that's fine, I'll do that. Or as opposed to, that dick sending me something, I'm just going to reject that without looking at it. So
that guy laughed at me last time after it went wrong.
See, like, I laughed at Peter last time, and now he just rejects all my trade offers.
I do.
He does.
Send me Tyler Johnson. I don't know. I love trading, and
let me go pick him up off the wire, and I'll trade him to you.
Screw you, man. He's on my roster. And other teams' losses, like running backs. I traded them a handcuff like Alex Collins and got Kirk back. Yeah, that's a good way to learn about it. And Kirk's an interesting class of wide receiver. The ones that disappoint, but they're actually developed good roles. They're just like top 36 wide receivers that are useless, but they're actually not busting out. Like, a bust is Laquan Treadwell. A bust is Terrence Marshall. Ha! Got it in there again. A bust isn't someone who develops a large role and yet doesn't quite score the right number of touchdowns. That's why I really kept thinking Corey Davis was better. And he did. That was positive. Then he went to the Jets. So, yeah, Christian Kirk's an interesting class of wide receiver to target. But again, they're kind of value players. They're players you target because their value increases because we're rightly underrating them, like Tyler Boyd. And then you're trying to trade for that top tier. Like CeeDee Lamb right now is the cheapest in the top tier for me, as far as I can gauge. Okay, just going to shut up. I'm addicted to trading, and so is my brother. We've made 18 trades already this year. It's a family affair. It's cool. Check out Russ, Dynasty Trade Trade Podcast. Each. Oh, that's even better. I'm in a high stakes league.
And her favorite high stakes league, which means she's in multiple.
I know. Can't
That is terrifying.
I have 4 solid trading partners who are reasonable and fun to trade with, although sometimes they send funny trades that are rejected.
I can't imagine trading in a high stakes league. It has to be so anxiety inducing.
I feel like I could win so much money, but I
would not.
I just wouldn't. And also, I tell you what, no, because that sounds arrogant as fuck, but I'd probably lose plenty. But the point is, you win more, over 50%, you win money. But like me and my wife went through Nevada and Arizona on our honeymoon, belated. We went long after we were married, and we just wanted to see Arizona and desert stuff. None of us had ever been to a place like that, and we're both fairly well traveled. And we went through Vegas, and we lost on total $60, and I spent the next 2 weeks feeling heart sick because I'd lost. I went up 200 at one point, and then at the end of it, I was minus 60, and I honestly still feel a little guilty about it.
Seriously, be only losing 60? It's fun. Like when I go to
that's the thing. It's not a lot, even at the time, and we were even broker than them when we are now. It wasn't that much money, and yet I still have not fully recovered. Like the guilt, I could have bought my kids something. I could have bought lunch.
But like, how much fun did you have? Things. That's the thing.
And it's just not in my heart.
When I go to a casino, which is very rare, I just treat it like I'm going to an arcade. Like I'm gonna have fun. Chances are I'm not leaving with more than what I spent.
The thing is, I could spend $200 in an arcade and not feel bad about it a bit. That's paying for fun. I understand it, but I know it's not an arcade. It's meant to be. I don't like losing games. I think that's part of it, and I don't like gambling.
You get used to it after a while.
Gambling's not in my heart. You don't have to. Just don't play games you get bad at. You know. Also, like I'm too unsociable. Like I want to play blackjack, but I didn't want to deal with a dealer and another person. So I was playing the computer things, which I literally understand how they're a con. It's a mathematical algorithm. And I was like, yeah, but I don't want to talk to the people. So I don't think gambling's for me. Like, no. Nicholas J. I talked up Madison a lot and got a first. It works sometimes. Yeah, but it feels bad. Doesn't it feel? No, it doesn't feel bad.
He does not sound like he feels bad.
He does not feel bad. Nice. You talked up. Well,
for Madison.
Nicholas. We're just getting in the way of a good conversation here. Matthew Biddle, welcome in. It's official. I have the 101, the 104, the 106, and the 109. You're probably going to get a good player. In a rebuild with a lot of young wide receiver talent already, what would you do from here? I'd sit on him. Just sit on him. Always be interested in trading. You want 23 picks now? You want picks in the next year? But there's no rush. Let it come to you.
But even still, if this is a super flex league? Because if it is, you're going to walk away with a quarterback and 2 running backs.
Yep, there's at least one good one.
Like out of those picks, if you choose to use them all, which I wouldn't, but if you did, like this, you could build a bit. I'm with Peter. I would move back 1 or 2 picks to try and get it to 23, and then see if you can pull like T. Higgins for one of those, like one of those guys that are awesome, and you could probably still get for first because people still think he's second to Chase. Which I get it, he is, but he's still
not after last week, right? You'd have to wait a couple weeks before people forget that.
I guess that's fair.
But yeah, no, that's right. I think what Russ is saying is exactly right, in that you don't have to trade them away, but you'll be interested in moving it for you down the line. If you have to make all those picks, you're good, but be willing to, because Dynasty is all about rolling a little bit of value forward while trying to compete this year. All right. Join us. Wow, congrats. Can't argue with those productive struggle results.
Yeah.
I hate productive struggle. I know my boss created it and I hate it. I hate the concept. I hate everything about it. I hate that he's right.
Much fun.
I hate it. I just want to punch him in the nuts. I
am telling Ryan that you want to punch him in the nuts.
Not Ryan specifically, more the concept that is Ryan being accurate about.
You can tell him I said hello and I want to shake his hand.
I'm gonna get told on. I'm so fired. That's a great point. I think Hall has a great catching. He's great at
he's a good pass catcher. Yeah, he is.
Mm-hmm. I feel like Walker can be Jonathan Taylor and gets passes a lot, but okay with it. And Zach says no. But how old though?
So everyone knocked Jonathan Taylor last year coming out for pass catching, but he had been a pass catcher. He had 26 receptions the last year of college at Wisconsin. It's not like he wasn't used, but Brees Hall has never had more than 13 catches in a season, and the other 2 seasons he had 3. Like, they're not using, I mean, not Brees Hall, Walker. Like, they're not using Kenneth Walker in the receiving game. And again, it's not the end all be all, but when I look at guys coming in as running backs out of college, I look for 20 receptions in a season. And the reason I do that is because that's a pretty good indication that they were used as a pass catcher. The NFL is not very creative. So they're not going to try to take a guy who was not a pass catcher and make him a pass catcher unless everything breaks exactly right.
Like, they draft players to do
they
what they've seen them do, which makes a lot of sense. You're not paying up $1 million or whatever draft pick is.
It's not
see if they're a good.
It's not a developmental league. Like I would like every single player in the NFL is good enough to catch the ball. Like, and I won't argue that, but there are tiers of that skill, and regardless of what you think or what I think, the NFL is not very creative, and they don't want to develop players, and they want to draft a guy who is a pass catching running back and use him as a pass catching running back.
I think
if he's not a pass catcher, they don't use him as. I mean, like, how many years have we been screaming that all you need to do is dump the ball off to Derrick Henry 40 times, and he is the best player in the NFL by far, and they never did it.
It's a problem there. Also, we are seeing a little more creativity here and there, but everything's relative. If you draft a player in the first round or the second round, you're not drafting them to see if they could play a different position, maybe. Right. Because in the same reason you wouldn't gamble your one paycheck on maybe I can live in a boat. You're probably going to pay your mortgage payment first. Way comparison, but there you go. Thanks for playing. It helps. Here, Hall number 1 out of 3 because he can do everything Walker can't pass block or does catch. Then Spiller is good, but has like 8 fumbles.
Fumbles is not.
I don't care about that. Yeah, I mean that was another knock on Jonathan Taylor.
I was going to say about Jay, it's weird how a narrative surrounds a player that literally isn't true about them, but that becomes a feature. Like the reason we like Josh Jacobs, just since we're talking about him, he's phenomenally much younger than you think, by the way. But we liked him because he was this strong receiving back.
Right.
And we spent the entire first year like, why haven't they thrown him the ball? And now we just like, oh, yeah, he's just a small grinder. We completely forgot.
I mean,
we liked him because he was a receiving back.
They are throwing in the ball now, and it's beautiful.
A little bit.
But how long? I mean, that's because everybody else is hurt. I mean, Kenyon Drake is down. The Jalen Richard is that, or whoever. Like that entire backfield is hurt, and it's Josh Jacobs. Which again, this was the Fournette thing 2 years ago. 2 years, and what happened with James Robinson last year? 2 years ago, Fournette was the only back in the backfield in Jacksonville. And you and I had this conversation in June, Peter, or maybe early July, because it was right before the Scott Fish Bowl. And I remember coming on with you and saying, Leonard Fournette is a league winner this year because there's nobody in their backfield to catch the ball, and he's going to catch 40 passes. It turned out that they threw him the ball 100 times, and he caught 70 passes, and he was a league winner. I didn't think it was going to be quite like that. And then James Robinson last year had 50 receptions because one of their players got COVID. Another one of their players was just injured and also not good, but we'll get into that another time. And it was just James Robinson. And so he caught the ball. Like sometimes that happens, but banking on that is not something I'm willing to do.
Trying to ask what player we were wrong on this year. Michael Pittman, I was definitely wrong on him. Jalen Waddle, like we mentioned earlier, I think I had him ranked too low. I called out Matt Stafford in that the upside was a little exaggerated while hitting on Cooper Kupp, and I think that was a little. I think I'm wrong on that. He's top 12, strongly a difference maker week to week. So
for me, it's a couple. And Brian Edwards,
and Juju, obviously.
Yeah, and Juju is the other one. Like Brian Edwards, I thought this year was going to establish himself as the number one target in Las Vegas. and he didn't. And I don't even have an excuse. I don't know. I'm gonna have to go back and kind of revisit that, but that was a bad film evaluation for me as him as a rookie, and it was also obviously bad process coming in as a second year where he didn't do what I thought he was going to. And Juju is the other one where even as poorly as Juju played in 2020, he was still the best receiver on Pittsburgh. Like if you go back and look statistically, he was the best receiver on the Steelers, even though everybody was Deontay Johnson, and I fully expected a rebound, and obviously injuries notwithstanding, but he still wasn't.
No, he wasn't. Even when he was healthy, he was not that. I was just completely wrong. And it led me to underrating Deontay a little bit. Like I didn't rank him, like I knew he was good, but I just wanted Juju cheaper. And that's always a mistake. Like I can get this guy cheaper, so I don't. I called out, what's his name? Oh man, he used to work with me at FS Statistics. He's mostly doing baseball and stuff now, I think. But I went after him hard, saying he preferred Curtis Samuel over DJ Moore because Curtis Samuel was cheaper, and that's when I instituted it as kind of a heuristic. Like, that's just not a good process. Like, if you believe the number one has top 12 upside, you should just like that guy. Mm-hmm. And the discount doesn't matter at that point. And I made that mistake with Deontay a little bit. I wasn't low on him, but I just constantly talked about the guy under him, and it was a mistake.
But the thing where Johannes says, has your opinion changed long term? Like for Deontay, me,
yeah, for sure.
For me, I've got to, and then this is something I'm bad about and I need to get better at, because I think that making decisions quickly benefits you more often than not. So someone like Bryan Edwards, I need to see Bryan Edwards not be successful and say, okay, I'm going to trade Bryan Edwards or that type of player who is not successful early, trade him. And if I want to go back, if I want to go back and get him later, if he becomes a good player, I'll pay the iron price for him. But it's better to get out on a player who has not proven successful while they still have value. No. And that, I think, is the long-term, not just an opinion that changed on Edwards, but an opinion that changed on how I try to approach my process, how I try to approach playing the game.
That's actually one of the biggest things I found that's changed the way I play Dynasty at all. It's actually we adjust appropriately in rankings and valuation. Like I think Dynasty and fantasy football maybe in general attracts people who think the world moves too quickly. Don't give up. We want to root for the underdog, essentially. And so we're like, yeah, you're giving up on them too soon. In fact, we actually give up on them at a fairly appropriate rate. And honestly, one of the fundamental changes I've made is getting out earlier. The few that it turns out we were like Tyler Boyd, but that one made no sense. Michael Pittman, who's now breaking out. Like there are very few who actually you were wrong. It can happen. It's worth knowing. But when you gonna get something 9 times out of 10 right, and you can get all your value back for doing it, just do it.
And that's part of and I've tried to become way more clinical about, like, I try not to get attached to players, and it's hard.
Yeah, it's very hard. Yeah.
But you're a lot better off because those players that you get rid of too fast and then hit, that hurts.
Mm-hmm.
But
you can still do it, especially for that. Like Bryan Edwards was someone I thought was legit.
Yeah.
Kelvin Harmon.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Washington, that's another guy. I wish I'd known it back then because I had him valued the same way for a few years and then didn't get out of him. Bryan Edwards, I did. And Dimey Brown. Sorry, Russ. I traded him to you, I think. It can happen. I still believe in the player, but
it's not like
it's harder and harder. You got to stick with the process.
And I think that's the thing is, if you're playing fantasy football to win, you've got to make the decision that is more likely, more often. I think there's a fun balance to be struck, especially if you're not in a high stakes league with every other league with like Joanna's. Like we're just having fun. In most of my leagues, it's like a $40 buy-in. You roster, I roster Tyler Johnson. I legitimately roster Tyler Johnson in my leagues, and you can do
Yeah,
that.
fine.
You can do that for especially if you got longer benches and whatever. If he's 2 years out and he's you're not going to pay the Tyler Johnson price now that you would have coming out in that draft class.
No, that's fair, but you can even do it quicker than that. That's where the rule comes in. It's like legitimately, if you can, actually, we should be giving up faster. If you want to get an edge on the market, it's actually, and I think all our inclination, everyone I talk to about this, our inclination is to beat the field by believing harder and longer. And actually, if you want to beat the field, there's a much shorter path, and it's where you're just the coward. Like, no, I'm good. Okay. Yeah, I'm good. He's bad now. It's fine. And it feels like you shouldn't. It feels like something that shouldn't be right, but it actually is, and I hate it. But it's true. One quarterback league. I'm keeping Kyler, but got Fields on back burner.
One quarterback, I'd be a lot more inclined to trade Kyler. But
if I can trade a quarterback in one quarterback, I do. I don't not faulting anyone for keeping Kyler though. He's awesome and short, and I love that. I traded Renfro, smacked my head, laughed my ass off. Traded Renfro and Quiz Watkins. I remember that name. For Kenyon Drake to get
don't
handcuff for Jacobs.
Don't handcuff. You were doing so well like 3 messages ago where you were trading handcuffs to other people and taking advantage of them. Don't handcuff your own guys, because even if you're 100% successful, it's a net like no win. Like you go from Jacobs getting hurt to, if Drake comes in and does 100% of what Jacobs, there's no gain. Like you didn't go anywhere. If you're going to handcuff, go get other people's handcuffs. So if somebody goes, like, get Madison if you don't have Cook, because if Cook goes down, all of a sudden you have another RB1 to go along with Jacobs. You're there. You're almost, and you'll because Nick said he trades a ton, had made 18 trades. You'll get there, but like that's one of the things that you can, especially if your league is a little bit green.
Yeah, I think that's just factually true, but the edge is a little exaggerated in that actually everyone says it now. And I mean, if you're trading Quiz Watkins for it, sure.
Yeah, but Renfro's a top 12.
I wouldn't trade Renfro for a backup, but
for a handcuff.
No, I'm just throwing it out there. It's a little too hated.
He's got that Greek god physique.
I mean,
Renfro.
It is a lot of fun.
Might be Dionysus, but it's still a Greek god.
Everyone out there, go for DK Metcalf, and I'm there with a guy with the grapes. I'm a grape guy.
He's the one feeding DK Metcalf the grapes.
Yeah, he's the one. Literally, that's the relationship. For fear for his life, not because he's just a nice guy who will feed you grapes. Like, he's legitimately scared. If we're back in Roman times. I think I started a rumor I didn't mean to. Join us. Let's make Clue life. Yeah, basically. Like Russ, I don't think you were here for that.
I got right. I was doing
Russ.
this thing.
Oh, right. Cool.
When that was happening.
Hey, we're catching up from when you.
So we just got to half an hour ago.
Johnson for Brevin Jordan. Yeah, that's probably fine. Especially this week, he might do something. And Brevin Jordan was an interesting tight end, but undersized.
He's awesome.
Oh, I could just hear Russell. I don't know what's going on. He is good. Yes. He's good. Liz Life. Oh my God, this is hilarious. I don't know what we were doing at the time, but apparently it's hilarious.
It was totally me.
Do you think Keyshawn Vaughn and Keen, that guy, has a chance to become relevant next year? No. Trade him. Or drop him. Probably drop him.
If your league has return yardage.
Yeah, Niguan, you may be. But...
Yeah.
I answer from a vanilla league standpoint. I'm not apologizing for that. I'm not apologizing for things I love.
Well, you are in at least one league that has return yardage points.
I have not, Nicholas, watched enough wide receivers to tell you.
Yes, sir. You think
next week, if I'm around, I'll jump on and we'll talk wide receivers.
I'll catch up with you all in about 3 months. $60. Yeah, I know. That's the whole point. I couldn't have been more heartsick. Like, I still wait. It's one of those things where every now and again I'll be unable to sleep, and it'll be because I'm thinking of that $60. I don't know what to tell you. Cash, hey buddy, how you doing, man? Nicholas donated $5. When I find out when that goes, I will put it in a pool and we'll do something with it. Because so far we've made like $10 doing this
Pizza
live stream. And
party.
It's going to be Samantha's Downtown,
Yes.
August 13th or whatever it is at the Fantasy Football Expo.
I was thinking we'd do something like give away a DLF subscription, but yeah, we can buy
we can
ourselves
do that
food.
at
We can buy
Samantha's
ourselves
Downtown.
food. Bring the police here, Nicholas. Either way, and I really do. It's just nice to have the support and know you're enjoying it. Just wanted to give a little for all the help. Really appreciate it. That was me saying really appreciate it. Best Dynasty channel I found, and I subscribe to them all, and they have 65 subs. Yeah, I mean. Yeah, you're talking about mine, obviously. No, he's talking about DLF. You really should, because you've got Kyle and Cal and Tyler and Addison streaming, and Addison drops videos regularly. Like, I think we're underutilizing the YouTube, Twitch, especially the Twitch space. I mean, they've just got me staring at
Russ, you're doing a
spreadsheets,
great job, buddy.
you know? No, Russ doesn't do it. I'm not going to praise him. You see, he acts nice, but off stream, all just constant insults. This is where I get to have my. Nah, right. Russ is okay. Cash, what pick in the 2022 draft do you think the big teardrop is?
It's going to be earlier than that, but
6.
no, I think it's probably like 8.
Yeah,
I mean, not like I don't think this quarterback class is particularly great. Although you're gonna, Superflex it necessitates you drafting quarterbacks highly. I haven't watched enough of the wide receivers, but I think there are a few, and there are about 4 running backs, and there is one that I'm really willing to commit on.
I'm just going to say 3 because we always feel like a class is thick, and it always ends up being thinner. But I only know the names you all have mentioned on this stream. Like, I know nothing.
This class was, at least the running backs, the top tier of the running backs, I was pleasantly surprised with.
Who's there?
What?
There's Spiller, Walker, Hall.
No, there's Hall.
No, but like you said, there was 4 running backs that you thought were good.
Spiller, Walker, Hall, and I like Kyron Williams.
Okay, I just didn't know who the 4th guy was.
So he's smaller.
I've known the name.
Yeah, he's 5'9", 195, Notre Dame, kind of in that vein of Philip. Like, he's a smaller Philip Lindsay, Eckler, that type of. Is probably a pass catcher plus, but could also be really good.
Cool.
So,
all right, fellas, I'm going to go to bed now, but I didn't want to not show up for the show at all.
You look good. Good night.
Very disappointed in you, Russ.
I'm always disappointed in myself for the both of us, so it's fine.
It's harsh. Yeah, thanks for coming on. Appreciate it. Guess it's just me and you again, Zach. Yeah. Joanna said higher cash, just to break into their conversation for a second. Tim Shady, J-Ron feels like a cheating girlfriend. He continues to give me less than 3 points, and I keep taking him back because his sweet playoff schedule. Someone help me in this abusive relationship. Yeah, I'm in the abusive relationship, so I don't know what to say.
It's that you're really great as friends, and so you put them on the bench, and you're like, no, but it was so good last year. And then you put him in and you're like, oh, no, this didn't work. We break up again. I get it. But it's not his fault. It's not James Robinson's fault. Like, I will unequivocally say that it is not his fault, that it is Urban Meyer and whatever he is doing to try to get out of Jacksonville.
I don't think anyone minds blaming Urban Meyer. This week, honestly, is a different against Jacksonville, right? They've given up 4 top 12 running back performances, which isn't great. They have encouraged volume to the running game, but that's mostly because they suck. I'm looking at Houston versus Jacksonville, right? I'm an idiot. Sorry. 6 top 12 running back performances, encouraging. Houston's actually encouraging volume to the running back as well at a higher clip. It might be a pretty decent week for him, but he's
so scared.
68 rushing yards against him on average. He's in the top 20 running backs, top 24. He's not Yeah, it's going to be another rough week, but it's not a bad matchup either. As far as helping you in this abusive relationship, I can't, man. I'm in it with you. Yeah. Also, I mean, look at it this way: ain't no one giving you a first from him at this point, probably. So you kind of stuck with it, and it's fine. It's fine. It's fine. Rookie drafts. Yep. Matthew Biddle already have Higgins. Okay, that's from what we were saying earlier and who you can target. No problem. If you want a list of players that I target in general, I got it. Joanna Sanchez is laughing at us. I appreciate that too. Cash is part of the Bean Counter crew. He's part of my crew too. Just saying. I like your R2 show. We're just literally reading other people's conversations at this point. I'm moving on. Ben Johnson, pass protection is a hidden key to scouting running backs' ability to become 3-down backs in the NFL. I actually strongly disagree. I researched this. Like, pass catching grades are not helpful. Everything's context in situation, right? And so you can use it in that sense. But, like, this was the Jamal Williams over Aaron Jones argument. And how's it working out? I mean, Jamal Williams is good. He got on the field earlier. There's some signal to that, but it's not enough, if you know what I mean. But yeah, it's definitely something you keep looking at because it's telling you more about the player. That's always good. I think she's still talking to Johannes. Yep. Okay. Any hope for Tommy Treble? No. To be fair, I never had any hope for Tommy, but that is a very fun name.
Yeah, tight ends. Tight ends. I mean, you cycle them and look for athletic tight ends.
Highly athletic tight ends, over 6'5" and 220 pounds with draft capital. It's literally the list outside of Logan Thomas, outside of Delaney Walker because he started life as a running back. Yeah, that's it, right? Kittle, yeah, but he fits all of that except the draft capital, and he walled out in year 1, so it's not like we had to wonder for very long. And his athletic profile at least put him on the radar when he was drafted.
Yeah, he was,
but yeah. Those are my indicators for tight end rookie evaluation, especially Tommy Tremble. He might hit some of the size quotients, but he's not particularly athletic relative to it. It looked like you were going to say something.
No, I was looking at that. I was waiting for you to go Gainwell mold. And no, for Kyron Williams, I think Gainwell was less of a ball carrier and more of a receiver. I think Kyron is probably closer to, like I said, he's got that like Phillip Lindsay, Eckler, but not, I mean, obviously Eckler is yoked up and Kyron Williams is not yet. But that type of back that is smaller but can be successful in the NFL probably starts off as a pass catcher and then can work into something bigger. I think Gainwell is almost strictly a pass catcher. I don't think that you ever see him carry a workload.
No, he won't fall to the 5th round and be Nyheim Hines at best. Out of context, I have no idea. Nyheim Hines is cool. That's all I got. Pass pro reps more than grade. Yeah, that's fair. Like I say, information about the player is fine, but anything that you can use for pass protection to put on a map and compare them to other players it's not a good decision point between two players. That's all I know.
It's hard. Yeah. Well, and he says the bias of coaching, and it's really like it. That's true, but it's really hard to get a handle on the individual coaching staff and the individual player. And like, we don't see practice reps, and we don't see once the NFL team drafts a guy, what he's picking up. And there are some teams that are obviously better at teaching that in college. So last year, North Carolina, their running backs coach who ended up at Alabama this year was absolutely fantastic. Both Michael Carter and Davonte Williams were incredible pass blockers in terms of both identifying who they needed to block on a blitz and also squaring a guy up and not letting him get to the quarterback. But that's not the norm. Like, I don't think that every single college program has a guy who was an ex-NFL player, an ex-NFL running back who has the ability to teach that, and also the players have to pick that up. So
I can also say they had to improve when they got to the NFL.
Oh, certainly.
That.
Yeah. Well,
like, that's the thing. No one is ready to pass block when they get to the NFL. Every rookie grade improves throughout their career.
Yeah.
Like it sounds like ultra biased, but the NFL is a different game. And while those two had an advantage in it, it still didn't mean that they weren't going to. Production beats it every time. I'm not saying it's not I'm literally saying don't ignore it or stop looking at it. Like, good information about what that player is, and that information Zach was just talking about, the fact they have an elevated understanding of it is critical to understanding that player. But if it's that's putting one player over another, I would fade it.
Yeah, and the other part of that entire thing is, in fantasy football, that doesn't matter at all. Like, you don't care, other than if it affects him getting on the field, and chances are that's not what is affecting him getting on the field. There are a myriad of other factors before pass blocking, because honestly, if he's a pass catching running back, you don't really care if he pass block. You want him to chip and get out in the flat, because the ball's coming out before a rush can get to the quarterback anyway. I mean, that's literally, I mean, that's been the Patriots offense for the last 10 years is get the ball out in under 2 seconds. James White chips and Edelman runs a short route, or Welker runs a short route, or whoever you got there, and boom.
Yeah. And there's a strong, I'm just talking fantasy, there's a strong disconnect. Like, Jamal Williams had really strong interest from another NFL team, and Aaron Jones continues to be paired up in a backfield. So, yeah, there's an argument to say that means that he's more valuable in the NFL, for example. So I'm literally just talking fantasy, and understanding the player more accurately is always going to serve you well. I just care about fantasy points. I'm a terrible person. Ignore it. This Drake trade happened first before the season. No, that makes sense. Drake carries value at least 2 weeks out of every season. That seems to be a new Dynasty rule. Gainwell equals Hines at best. I think Akash is saying that's what he's automatically concluding. Tim Shady, outside of the recent Kittle 2-week explosion, top tight ends have been disappointing. What's the Dynasty top 10 ranking before look like right now? It's actually interesting. We started off the stream talking about how the difference-making tight ends haven't really been kicking it up this year. What did I say? They've been underperforming usable weeks in the top 5 by about 5 to 8%. So even though Kelsey's been killing it, he's still not as much of a difference maker this year. The top tight ends in Dynasty are going to be Kyle Pitts, still Kelsey, but he'll be fringe, still like 4 or 5. Still Kittle, he'll be 5th. And Mark Andrews is going to get into the top 5 just because of his age, and he's on a successful team and he can catch touchdowns. He's pretty good himself. And that's 4 of them, isn't it?
Yeah, Gesicki and Waller probably up there too. But
I think
again,
Waller
like,
will cling in there, maybe.
Literally, like once you get past
after that, you don't care.
Yeah, Andrews, Kittle, Kelsey, and Pitts, because everybody cares about Pitts, then it doesn't really matter. Like it literally, like, you're looking for guys with touchdown upside. You're looking for, what I usually do at the end of a season is I look for players who are targeted highly and are staying on that same team. So
what's interesting,
Hawkinson is leading his team in targets, even though he's had a terrible season. Like he's still leading their team in targets. He's had 76 targets or something like that. And that's what I'm looking for, because there are only going to be 4 or 5 or 6 tight ends who have over 100 targets in a season, and a couple of them are going to be
maybe 2.
Yeah, and a couple
in a good
of them
season.
A couple of them are going to be underrated. And those are the guys. Those are the guys that I'll go look for.
1, maybe 2 are going to matter in any individual season, and like this year, none of them. I would say Hawkinson and Fant are what we typically get, and then everyone above them are the ones that have presented the possibility of more upside. Like, that's literally the way Dynasty breaks it down. This offseason is going to be interesting, because there's always at least a couple like drafted within the relevant first early single-digit rounds, and it's been Kelsey and Waller, and then maybe Kittle later. And this offseason, instead of selecting those productive players, it's going to be Kyle Pitts. Then it's going to be Mark Andrews because he's young. And so the production players are actually going to fall a little bit. And that's going to make for an interesting conversation this offseason. Like, maybe we should target Kittle and Kelsey because the production is now cheap and the value is now expensive. And I would never pay it for the value. I'm just not.
And Freiermuth is probably right on the cusp. I don't think he's.
Freiermuth is a really good point.
Yeah. I mean, like, I think he's right on the cusp of that. And young.
He's going to get to the top 12 easy.
Yep.
Sorry, we only named the top 5. Yeah. Gesicki, Fant, Hawkinson, Freiermuth is going to get in there. Gesicki, Fant, Hawkinson.
Got it.
I'm trying to look at a list here. I mentioned Fant already. That's 5. So we need 2 more. Hunter Henry at default, maybe.
Gross.
Hunter Henry, Evan Ingram.
Gross. Yeah. I mean, it's.
And you really don't care it's the top 5 unless they're coming at a distinct value, which they can do. But this year, the value, like the productive players are going to be at value. So I especially don't care. I've added Fant regularly. He tends to fall a little easier than even Hawkinson. And that's mainly because he's going to remain what he is for a number of years. So it's just extending my value. Night, guys. Night, Cash. Joannis, good night. Really, Truther, damn, you're still alive. Yeah, I don't know how this happens to us. I don't. Buy low on Ingram movement is back. Yeah, I've been buying low on Ingram like for so many years. Like, I think he's allergic to touchdowns. I don't know what's going on. Well, yeah, I do. It's the Giants. That's what's going on. You're looking at Kyle Pitts' future, though. So Cole Kmet's interesting. He's not making the top 12, but yeah, I definitely think he's an interesting deeper tight end. Cole Kmet, Evan Ingram.
When I was watching Cole Kmet, it was not. That was not the answer.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he was fine, but my notes on Cole Kmet were all about what's his name in Pittsburgh that I thought was going to be a tight end and is now really tall Canadian.
Jacob Harris?
No. He's a wide receiver. He's the
Chase Claypool.
Like every note I had about Kmet was, wow, Claypool should be the tight end. Like Claypool is the best tight end on this team.
Memories. Sorry, I was just remembering that I ranked Chase Claypool as both a wide receiver and a tight end, and that felt like such a bad move after that first season. Kmet's interesting. He's young. He's built right. I fear he's a David Njoku. Always potential, never quite there for a full season. Tim Shady, thanks, guys. Always love the show. I really appreciate you saying that, man. Appreciate it. Chances Gordon isn't in Denver next year. Melvin Gordon, yeah, maybe. I don't see the advantage for the team in pushing it, and I think they'll sign another vet anyway if he does. And I don't think it matters. I think Davonte has eventually got this backfield to himself. But just don't underrate Gordon because of it.
Yeah, I mean, Melvin Gordon's good. He's been good this year. I don't know why you would move on from him unless he. I think
he'll get hurt or he'll be too much by the cap, and then eventually.
I mean, he's a free agent this year, so like
could get signed.
Maybe maybe he goes somewhere else, but.
I went to school with the Cash Patel. Wow. Pretty cool. Sorry, I was gonna do I know that guy joke, and I can't. It's too late. Yeah, he's really cool. I enjoy talking to Cash about fantasy football a lot. Any recommendations for deep dynasty stashes for next year? I'm in a 14-team league. Tyler Johnson. No. Yeah. Let me pull up this thing that I got. Would be ready-made, except for the fact that I never have it ready when I need it to. I've actually started keeping track of that kind of stuff just to make it easier. I still think Jarrett Patterson, Kalen Hill, Khalil Herbert are pretty interesting deeper dynasty running back stashes. Wide receiver, I play a little different. I like the guys who are now aging out but have shown potential in the NFL, so tend to fall in value. But they're not really stashes. You're not finding them on the waiver wire. Robbie Anderson, Juju Smith-Schuster, Davonte Parker, you're not going to find them on the waiver wire. Those that you might include Seth Williams, Ashland Dulin, as not really Isaiah Ford anymore, but Tylan Wallace from this year's last draft class. I think they're interesting. Just because they're lower drafted, so they're not meeting rookie expectations doesn't really matter to me as much. Really truther. I love Brevin Jordan. I think he's a little undersized, but I think he's a good receiver. And he's still playing, isn't he? Gerald Everett. Gerald Everett is kind of where I see him. Somehow found him on waivers 3 weeks ago, and that might be a good one this week. Traded a second for him, another Jonu and yet another. I'd probably rather Jonu, but I think that's fine. Buying back years, productive struggle and all. And this is getting instant rejected for a second. Yeah. Yeah, it's weird one league to another. In one league, you can't trade for them for a second. Another league, they're on waivers, especially when you're playing enough leagues. You find a lot of weird stuff like that. Probably not the thousands of Akashas and hundreds of thousands of Patels. Oh, sorry. I thought you were literally saying that you knew each other, not that I went to school with a Akash Patel. Yeah, it's pretty popular name. I grew up in England, so Patel is actually a pretty common name from. Simon Denny. Guys, I have a huge dilemma. Week 1 of playoffs, pick 3 to start. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Hawkinson, DK Metcalf, Mooney, Ayuk, Claypool, and Hollywood. I'm probably starting Hollywood. I can tell you that. Top 12 wide receiver, my boy. I literally have to look it up. So. I think I'm contractually obligated to look it up since I do projections. I'm not sure though. Illegal for me not to. I don't think Hawkinson is going to get the start unless you have a tight end spot because I tend to not flex tight ends.
Do really we know? I'm assuming PPR, but it doesn't say.
Let's see. Who am I missing? Ayuk's an interesting. It's really hard to balance San Francisco predictions right now because you got to, like they had to, you have to find a role for both Debo, Ayuk, and George Kittle without making Jimmy Garoppolo look like the number 1 player overall. So it's actually been somehow they're managing it. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. I forgot Mooney. I wouldn't. Mooney's a difficult start this week, especially with these options. Let's see. Flex ranks. You're sitting Hawkinson and Mooney. So we got to pick 3. DK, Marcus Brown. It's a kind of a toss-up between Clyde Edwards-Helaire and Brandon Ayuk. I'd probably start Brandon Ayuk. So the 3 wide receivers, Metcalf, Brown, and Ayuk for me.
That's fair. I'd probably go with Helaire over Ayuk, but
it's pretty close.
Yeah.
I lean wide receiver at flex if it's a flex spot. And yeah, PPR matters to that, by the way. I'm assuming PPR, like Zach said. Buy low wide receivers. I just did like stash wide receivers. So my value wide receivers right now, I kind of have Marcus Brown and Deebo Samuel there right now because I'm not sure what we're going to do with them. Like top 12 wide receivers. One's not a wide receiver and one's Marcus Brown. I don't know. Outside of that, let's see who I've got here. I'm going to hate all of these guys. Cortland Sutton, Michael Gallup. I think team old guy, Julio Jones, Adam Thielen. I think Jarvis Landry and Tyler Boyd fit into that category. And I put Tim Patrick on there because I'm trading thirds for Tim Patrick, and I'm not sorry. But Cortland Sutton's probably and Michael Gallup are probably the two most interesting on the list. Hang on, who was I saying earlier? Sutton, and Chase Claypool is going to make that list too. So yeah, Claypool, Gallup, and Cortland Sutton. I think Brandon Ayuk's going to have to move off that list for me. No one's fooled anymore. You got any buy low wide receivers you're interested in?
I think you hit most of them. What I usually do is try to find an ADP list and immediately go right around the 40. So right around the middle of the fourth round and look there, and it's basically that same group that you just said. Although I think you might be able to sneak like Jerry Jeudy,
interesting,
Pittman, that sort of thing. I like your Sutton. I think it'll get better from here, although it's been very ugly, and so he's probably, you can get him very low. And then
I think buy low wide receivers as a group, they're remembering what they have done rather than what they're doing recently. That's kind of my they're old.
Well, and that's the thing. So here's a question for you from me: is what are you doing? Like, Allen Robinson is 28, going to be 29 next season. He has been absolutely abysmal this year. Is there a what's your price to acquire him? Like, if
too much, I put him in a trade coming to me, but I don't think I'm trading for them because I think their individual value is too much. I've got him in a section of the list with OBJ.
Yeah,
if that helps. Like, I think there's more production there still to come. But I don't think I'd pay for him outright. I don't think I'd trade for them outright.
That may be a door that I'd knock on, though, because of how poorly he's produced. Well, again, my mind always goes to the psychological part of this, and he has hurt people very badly this year. And I think that he might be a player that you can buy low on, even though he's 28, even though he's not what you typically think of as buy low. You know, you're usually thinking of a young guy on the come up. I think that there's potential to get Allen Robinson for less than Allen Robinson.
Thing is, that's probably, you want to trade a second for him.
Yeah.
But no one wants to trade him. Like, that would be a tough trade to get done. And so I don't know. That's where.
Do you think you could throw, another player in a second? So, like,
yeah, that's the thing. It's normally when I'm targeting someone else or I want someone else in the trade. Because the thing is with Allen Robinson, you're like trying to play a value bet for production because his value's not going up even if he produces. He's too old at this point. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Perennially undervalued Brandon Cooks.
Yeah. A good way of looking at it, but Allen Robinson's been even less situation independent, you know.
Yeah.
I just want to punch him. No, I think maybe the Jags just ruin players. Like, that's my best explanation for Robinson. I think he's a good name to have on the list. Honestly, he's probably not on mine just because psychology, like you said, maybe it's just psychology for me. I've just been too hurt. Nicholas, okay, what would be crazy? The guy I know is from Ohio. Just wanted to make sure. They're talking about the cash he knows. Yeah, I don't think so.
Yeah, it didn't happen. It wasn't the same one. Yeah.
Really truth. I got offered Deontay Harris, Crowder, Tyler Johnson for my 23s. Just keep the second, man. They're trying to roster dump you. They're going to be on the waiver wire next week. That's what that is. I'm rebuilding and just got a lot of guys. Yeah, keep the second. Just think Bucks will sign a free agent wide receiver or Johnson. Yeah, that's the thing. These are interesting guys. I like having the back of my roster. They're on the back of his roster.
But don't pay
trying
for
to get
an
extra pick. Yeah, I think at least two of those are going to be on the waiver wire this offseason.
And the other thing is, not only are you
value though.
Yeah, not only are you getting a whole bunch of guys that you don't want, but you're also losing that back end roster flexibility. Like, roster spots are valuable. And so, yeah, and so throwing guys on there that you don't want, you're either dropping them or you feel bad about giving up a second to get them, and you're hanging on to them at the detriment of being able to pick somebody else up. So that, I don't think I'd do that.
Yeah, it's like, instead of getting Allen Robinson, I'd still probably rather go after Adam Thielen or Julio Jones. They feel like team old guy, but it's hard to target. You know? At least they're still producing them. Sorry,
Thielen. I get you.
I'm getting stuck on the idea that I don't want Allen Robinson. That seems weird to me.
Well, that's fair. That was my question.
Cash says the same thing. Yeah, this literally feels like someone's listened to a podcast and they've said, trade those deep guys for someone's second. You know, when you go to the waiver wire and you see all these, terrible players, it's because they don't want to drop them. So they want to trade you them for nothing. And it feels like that's what he's coming up with.
Yeah.
That's why the package always gets a discount in the trade calculator. The roster, like Zach said, the roster space has value. And everyone seems to agree. So I feel like you got one right. I'm pretty happy with that. Simon Denny, half-point PB tight end premium, which doesn't matter to me, but it's good to know, the premium. Thanks for your help. Would you consider starting Mike Williams or Ayuk? I mean, I would consider it if that's where your feelings are at. Yeah, I mean, you got to start your guys. Personally, I would start Ayuk over Williams. Especially lately, Ayuk has had no problem finding his role again. This team seems to have figured out that balance. Daniel McGrath, thoughts on Amon-Ra? We were talking about him earlier. I like him. I think he's done well, especially for his draft capital and a terrible situation. We think he's got limited ceiling ultimately.
Yeah.
And it probably goes away when other wide receivers turn up or tight ends, as they probably will, or a quarterback who can do anything. Jared Goff just fouled out really all around, didn't he?
He's so bad.
Poor guy. I mean, he's rich, so he's fine.
Yeah.
But
he
at college
lives in
level,
Detroit
he was
now.
amazing, but the NFL's just thing. Yeah, that's fair. He can probably move. I imagine he can move. The top 10 Dynasty tight end rankings are Kittle, Andrews, Pitts, Hawk, Kelsey, Waller, Goddard, Knox, Muth?
Freiermuth.
Freiermuth, and Fant. Yeah, the only one I would kick out of there is probably Knox. I get it. But yeah, it seems solid.
I would stop the top 10 after
Gesicki needs.
So my top 10 would be Pitts, Andrews, Kittle, Kelsey. That's my top 10.
Yeah, that's the thing. I only really rank about 5, and that's an exceptionally long list for me, right?
Everything else is the next 20.
Next 10 and then next 20. I got a second tier.
15,
like it's got Fant in it, it's got Hawkinson in it, but Hawkinson's not going to be in the top 5 anymore.
It's less than 2 points a week from from tight end 8 to tight end 25. Like it's literally less than 2 points. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
But the youth has value in the Hawkinson group, and so that's kind of why I'm kicking Knox out. Second question about Denzel Mims. Third about Terrence Marshall. I don't. Is there hope for Terrence Marshall? Yes. I would sell that hope.
He's gone back to Terrence, so that you know that there's no hope for him.
I never left Terrence. And no, that's not true. The first 3 weeks he had an impressive target share, and I allowed it.
And he was Terrence, but then he went back to.
But then he went back to who we thought he was, and he's Terrence. Not to diminish the player, amazing college player, well-deserved draft capital.
No, you are lying right now. I hear you. I know that you went through the exact same thing I did, because when I posted my top 12 last year, everyone was like, "You are an idiot. Terrace Marshall is not in your top 12. What are you doing?" And I said, I
intend to be better than those people. And that's the thing. I'm not going to diminish the player for those guys being idiots. And I was called certain things by lots of people, high and low in our little industry. Not one of them's come back to say, "Hey, good call." That's fine. I mean, that's fine. They'll be wrong more often continuously, and I will be right and get no money for it. It's fine. But the player, Terrence Marshall is better at football than I will ever be at anything. That's what I'm saying. I can't criticize a man who's it's not fair criticism.
But that's not we're evaluating the top 1% of the top 1% of
exactly. That's
in the world. So
exactly.
Just because he was in the bottom of the top 1% doesn't mean he's a bad football player. But for what we're doing, he is not the answer. And
is there hope he bounces back? Yeah, I mean, again, we've seen every now and again a disappointing rookie season pay off.
I think Terrace Marshall, though, is probably the best argument that anyone has ever had for vacated targets, because Terrace Marshall came in with Justin Jefferson gone, with Jamar Chase gone, with Keyshawn Boutte getting hurt, and was good. And then as soon as he shut it down for the end of the season, because he got done before the end of the season. And then Kayshon Boutte came in and in 3 games did more than what Terrace Marshall did in his 6 games. And it's just like, it's so obvious, or was so obvious to me.
I thought it was too.
I
think this is one of the cases where I broke it down. It was fairly simple to break down and said, this is exactly where the good numbers are coming from. It doesn't really make sense to believe on it, and it's never worked before. I'm out. And people convince themselves of stuff, man. And there was a chance he had draft capital. He's big. He's very good at football. But I think the signal was fake, and I think it was knowably fake.
Yeah.
Could he be a better football player than his college numbers look like? Yes. Definitely. But at this point, the only thing to do it feels like victory dancing a young kid's dream at this point. Like, they were wrong. They should have known they were wrong, and like not one of them has owned up to it. It's fine. It's fine. I don't care that I'm kicked out of the industry and mocked for it, and then no one ever comes back. It's fine.
And I think the thing that people like forget, and maybe some people do this, but like I know that you are kind of this same mind, but like, I'm not cheering against any of these players. If I evaluate a player and think he is not going to be successful in the NFL or for fantasy in the NFL, and he is, I am 100% happy to eat that. Like, I cheer for all of these guys to be successful. The more good players in the league, the better fantasy football is. Points are awesome.
Simple. And the only reason to mention any of this is the only other things I can say is it's just continued to be negative, and it always has been. And I don't need to double down on what's already negative. So the only thing to talk about is this, that he's great. I hope he does better than his numbers, but this should have been the expectation.
Yep.
I really think people get really up in their, they're not willing to.
You get attached
in the face and call it a horse.
You get attached. You get stuck. Okay. You get
I did it. I still love Tyler Johnson and Justin Watkins. You know,
and it's easy to, especially with tape evaluation, and maybe you have the same trap in different ways with the analytics, but with tape evaluation, it's really easy to see a highlight and get excited, which is why when I watch film, I don't care about, like, a highlight gets counted once, just the same as anything else, positive or negative. Like, that's how I do it. And so
and I'm half memeing. Like, no one was particularly mean or said anything. Like, no one's. I was just joking about that stuff. Have had no negative consequences to not liking Terrace Marshall is enough.
Oh, I had a bunch, but
nothing like bad. Just you're an idiot. Yeah, sure.
I mean,
proven facts, my man. Proven facts.
I mean, I already copped to the fact that I'm a dummy. I don't know what more of the
I don't know what more you want from me, but I just think this particular trend, like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, go look at the games he played. There's 3 games in there where he played a full complement and did well, and every other game, and even his per game numbers were average for his conference and his team. Does that mean everything? Frick no. But I don't understand that, and therefore he's the best wide receiver. It's stupid not to think he's like, okay. It's a really weird one. It feels like, I guess the reason I'm going on about it is it feels like once we raise expectations and without justification for a player ends up getting slammed with that, not us. I'm like Terrace Marshall's just entered the highest competition jump that anyone can anywhere. Let's not, like, some people raise his expectations way too high. Let's not let this filter over to the player. Like, the player's in a tough spot and is phenomenal at the game, and let's make sure it's us that we're panning. And the reason I mention it is got no reason to, like, literally doing nothing for his rookie season. I don't need to prove that's bad. That's obviously nothing. I specifically remember Peter telling us a year and a half ago that Marshall's teammate score isn't a thing we should follow. Yeah,
you should have been here 5 years ago. He was saying the same thing, but it was about a different player.
Yep. I got misses where some people think the team, like Chase Claypool, I missed on him, like full on. Michael Pittman, I thought he was fairly average looking, but fine. You saw more upside. Like it's not like that's what I was saying about the passing grades earlier. Like more information about a player is good.
Yeah.
I'm just telling you, it's not a magic. Well, that means he's actually like all these other. No, there's a red flag there. If you have to adjust it by some adjustment that literally has never improved someone else's signal, then it's probably a red flag, and you're just trying to see a unicorn instead of a horse. You zebras? There's a something that says this easier. Anytime someone brings up college production with teammates holding someone back, I bring up all three of JSN. Yeah, I love Wilson producing together this year because good players find a way. Like Jefferson and Chase.
Yeah,
you can't get two more dominant players in the NFL in their rookie seasons. Literally can't. The only
Landry and OBJ, same thing.
And they both seem to have limited, based on what they've done in the NFL, each of the ceilings, but they had no problem like drowning the rest of the offense out. Yeah. AJ Brown, DK Metcalf played in the same team for a few games together when they overlapped, and everyone else just disappeared. It wasn't a matter of they disappeared. It's I'd never seen anything so clearly and yet so prevalently accepted by literally everyone. I'm like, yeah, sure, I miss a lot too, so I don't know it's 100% right, but I can't find any examples of it working, so I don't know why it's the standard. Yeah. Cash has known this and knows this better than me, probably. So I remember even Drew O said something along the lines of Marshall has been a bust grade, but I still might like him because of the upside. And yeah, that was a fair take. Like, Marshall's big, he's good at football, he got high draft capital. It's not like I refuse to rank him. Gotta respect the draft capital, if nothing else. But yeah, again, just slide it onto us, not the player. That's all I'm saying. We might have squinted too hard at him as a group, but Marshall's been fine as far as he goes. I'm just fascinated that Robbie Anderson isn't that much better than Marshall Jr. Robbie Anderson's been interesting this year. He has been a lot better in that, despite underperforming every target he's been given, he still keeps getting the targets. So that's the signal I tend to look at. Robbie Anderson's just weird across the board, right? I think I understand him, and then something different happens. Like on the Jets, I just thought he was the tallest midget. You know, yeah, he's good, but he's lower drafted, and like there's only Jamison Crowder on the team. Then he goes to Carolina and literally makes DJ Moore sit down, which is more significant to me as a nerd probably than most fantasy players, because on a yards basis, there are very few players as good as creating yards as DJ Moore, as far as I can tell. Just not touchdowns. And he literally spends most of the year out targeting DJ Moore. And I'm like, what the hell? I guess he's much better than I thought he is. And then we go into this year, and he still earns the targets, but can't do shit with them. Like, I don't know where Robbie Anderson is, but he's not bad. But sometimes he can be bad. I don't know. But what I would say here is the fact that he's still getting the targets, despite being terrible with them this year. That's the signal I'm looking at. But yeah, there's definitely still hope for Terrence Marshall. It's just asking someone who was out to begin with. It's awkward for me to say that or say be out. Like, I can't be more out of Terrence Marshall. I roster him nowhere. At a certain point, he becomes a value, like Akash said, Drew said. Yeah, I got that right. Like, he's an early draft round pick who meets a lot of the ancillary numbers, who came from a good... At a certain point, his upside does outweigh his value. So when you hear who's think horses, not zebras. Yeah.
No, I'm in the minority. I always think of copies.
Hey. Sorry. Well, the lower down the draft capital scale you get, the more I think zebras. Like, to be honest, but that's where I'll take those shots because, again, it's a value. It's a value thing.
I think that's spam.
Gotta hope so. I don't even recognize what language I don't speak here. And Cash, I'm literally the same way with Anderson every step of the way. Yeah, Robbie Anderson was put in this world, or put in this league, not this world. He's put in this league for probably his own personal reasons, just to troll me, I think. Like, because I would so love him to be phenomenal, a lower drafted player who took this career path, and yet when I try to believe in it a little bit, like, this year happens. It's just, I mean, I don't know. Maybe it's just a quarterback problem. DJ Moore has not been scoring more touchdowns as I really think he could do. And yet still being phenomenal at create yards. For a while there, it looked like Christian McCaffrey was the limiting factor. And no. Touchdowns still don't roll to Moore. I will say Robbie's out-targeted of Moore last year might have been partly because of Moore's ADOT and his... Yeah, there's clearly NFL context that doesn't fit into my neat little box. I think that's what it is, okay? If I'm going to be serious a second, I'm not adjusting for enough real-world situations because I'm playing fantasy. And I'm also not interested in it because largely this is going to be a very specific thing that doesn't repeat a lot. I know he's good. I know he's very situation dependent, and those two things will do for me.
But that seems, I mean, and maybe because I'm not a numbers guy, but that seems backwards to me. Where generally the deeper targets are fewer, and the lower ADOT you see more targets, just because that's you're more likely to get open closer to the line of scrimmage and quicker closer to the line of scrimmage, and so then you should be seeing more targets, even though it didn't happen necessarily.
That was the interesting thing about Anderson last year, though, because his ADOT shrunk down to where DJ Moore, like he literally. With Moore still on the team, he was like, take that. And took one of the best yards. I was like, and Moore obviously doesn't move on the outside because that's not really his main role. And so they were just both compete. Now, towards the end of the season, Moore basically took it back.
Right.
If you look week by week, because Moore is really good. I don't know what to tell you. No touchdowns, but he's really good at the other stuff. But it was just interesting to see that it wasn't a tallest midget situation with Anderson. Like there's clearly more talent there than just the Jets.
It reminded me a little bit of Landry's first year on the Browns, where they kind of moved him further down the field. He was less targeted, it was less effective for fantasy, probably more effective for the Browns, although who can tell because it's the Browns. And similar situation to that with more kind of moving further down the field or somebody moving closer.
That's for sure what I sound like when someone says something I disagree with. I don't want to say it, but it's really interesting because it's such a specific situation. I don't think it's going to apply broadly.
Right.
I have to see if they get a quarterback at some point, I guess, to figure this mess out. That's what I'm saying. Robbie was a short guy last year, which was weird. Then again, last year, players switching ADOTs happened at a much more drastic rate, and that's partly what I was thinking of when I said the NFL's become more creative. More players are getting moved around, and this year we've got how is Atlanta the team that figures out Cordero Patterson's a good running back? How is it that
Belichick did it?
We went through Belichick
for a while too.
Yeah, not nearly this much.
Belichick
would be the one.
They used him. He was a plus kick returner, and then when their main back got hurt, it was Cordero Patterson was a running back one for 3 weeks in New England, and then his contract was up and he went away. And Atlanta, Atlanta's been good. Atlanta's been good. Their offensive, in terms of offensive.
It has improved since they focused with Patterson. I think. I think that's really once they let the offense be the offense almost. Yeah. And when Calvin Ridley was definitely out, and they let it be Pitts getting all these yards and Cordero Patterson just being the running back. It really seemed to improve it. Moore's air yard share went way up and target share a bit too. It's Whopper overall. He says that next, but his Whopper stayed pretty much the same. It's because they it's a seesaw balance where Whopper is actually target share adjusted air yard share. Literally, I forget what the coefficients are, 0.7 and something else. No one cares. It must be getting late. I'm trying to do math.
Hermsmeyer.
Damn you, Hermsmeyer. Because that's literally the formula. The share of air yards times the target share by two different coefficients. You know this. Why am I explaining this to Cash? You don't care, and Cash knows. So
I can't. I don't math. I don't do that.
I don't math. I'm just
math enough at work. I don't have to. There you go. There's the formula.
I got the 0.7 right. There you go. I'll take it. Yeah. I guess we're going to leave on the theme here. Buy low players that you're targeting now and through the off season for next year. Do you have a succinct list or one in particular? I've been asked that question. Who's the one player that you want to target? Increasingly, for me, I have no idea. Gonna look at it this offseason. I think I've got lots of buy lows. I don't know who I want to buy high on yet. So, outside of CeeDee Lamb, Jamar Chase, and Justin Jefferson, I'm not sure.
So I'm going to cheat because my buy low is going to be the 2022 rookie class, because I think that everybody has crapped on the 2022 rookie class, and the more I watch, the more I'm pretty confident that there are going to be 7 or 8 really useful fantasy players.
And you're thinking running backs more than most.
Well, both. I think that this class, the wide receiver, the top end talent at wide receiver may not be what it has been the last couple of years, but I think you're going to see a pretty good depth. So think, like last year. Last year there was obviously there were a couple of really high end guys, but then there was a lot of depth that we didn't necessarily expect. I think that this class could end up being similar, where you've got 3 or 4 running backs and 3 or 4 or 5 wide receivers that are going to be contributors downstream. You're not expecting Justin Jefferson. You're not expecting CeeDee Lamb. You're not expecting Jamar Chase. You're not expecting Jalen Waddle next year, like the guys who are producing as a top 12 or 15 wide receiver. But I think there are going to be some pretty useful pieces in this class. And enough people have talked down on it that I think right now, headed into playoffs, you're going to be able to sneak some of those players. If you're in a 12-team league, or say you're in a 12-team league, and you can trade a player to get a pick that's like the 6th pick, one of the teams that just kind of snuck in, go for it. Like, go do that. Like, I think those
don't worry about the top 3 so much. No, yeah,
if you can get the top 3, that's great. But top 3 is probably out of the playoffs. They're probably not looking to move. So 5, 6, 7, 8. I'm not averse to going and getting those picks, because I think they're going to be players enough to make those valuable. I think once you start getting to 10, 11, 12, that turn, I think it's going to get a little thin. But the top 7 or 8 or 9 guys are going to be pretty viable, I think.
No, I think that's a really good point, because we do tend to talk down some classes and up some other classes. This might be a better year to trade in for, because of the way the classes are talked about, than 2023 at this point.
But I think I do it now, because I think that it's going to happen where most people haven't watched the class. Most of the data analysts haven't, because the season hasn't kind of come to fruition yet, so they haven't dug in. And so in the next, probably, you have about a 2 or 3 week window right now before everybody starts to talk about this class. And then there's going to be a cacophony of people saying, Breece Hall and Kyron Williams and Kenneth Walker and Traylon Burks. Yeah. And so everybody's going to start talking about this. But if you can, this is the window. I talk about micro markets all the time. Like, this right now is the window where you are not going to be able to buy into the 2022 draft any cheaper than you can right now.
I think that's a better answer than I've got, actually. I really like the idea of buying 2022 picks. I think that should be our answer. It works again. Like, I want to say second-year wide receivers. I want to say Rashad Bateman. I want to say Devontae Smith.
Bateman's a great buy. Yeah, those are great buys.
Jamar Chase, sure, but that's not cheap. It's not lower than what I think.
2 Moores and Bateman, I think, are your low buys there.
I like Smith. I think Smith's going to be underrated too. But here's the thing.
Really?
You're going to have to...
Man, he's been so good.
I know. You're going to have to put picks with something to get them, though. And that works against... So maybe buy 2022 picks now and buy the second-year wide receivers later, I guess. Yeah. And trade 2023 picks for those guys, I guess.
Yeah, and that's... I don't mind that at all, because as good as the 2023 class has been talked about, the guys who are already in the league producing are a much better chance of hitting, and you are already going to get 2 years of production before you get a 2023 pick. That's like, I'm 100% on board with that.
No, I like that idea a lot. Buy 2022 picks. That's what I'm going to say. I came up with that. That's
You are brilliant, Peter. Absolutely brilliant.
I don't know how I keep hitting this. Every year I get that. No, I like that. I even add it to my list. Go buy 2022 picks. We'll take it off later. That's honestly one of the smartest ideas I've heard on buy, sell, what to do right now if you're not in the playoffs, because I think they're cheaper. I think that even if it's a quote-unquote bad class, there's going to be a few good players who normally fall, to your point, in another stream, towards the end of the first round in bad classes, and those are the easier picks to get, and now's probably the right time to target them, because it's going to continually ramp up from here to the draft. So yeah, I like that a lot. My rule of thumb is that if your draft picks would be more valuable on draft day, so I agree. Yeah, and especially from here, they're going to continue to increase, so now's the right time. The closer we get to the draft, the less of an ideal buy it's going to be. So yeah. No, sorry, I was trying to figure out, and I don't think I can speak to that curve properly, but there's probably a dip in season where it's an unideal time to buy rookie picks because no one's really interested in selling them, and now, right now, there might be. But sorry, you're getting tired. I'm tired. We've been on for
you gotta write an article, Peter.
I got 2 articles to write, man.
Oh man, not me. I just gotta
explains the quality of them, right?
I gotta wake up and design a ship, and that's easy
that
compared
sounds
to 2 articles.
Probably more important.
Nah, you're all good.
I think it's spelled with an I. Is it spelled Reed spelled with an I?
No, Reed is 2 E's. She got it. She's there. She's hip.
Joannis gets it right again. I get it wrong. That's just the way that goes. Really appreciate everyone tuning in, asking questions, especially those of you who are a little earlier, because that feels bad, man.
I blame
when you go live and there's like no one asking anything, you're like, well, I guess we'll talk about Cooper Cup. No one cares. But no, I really appreciate you all coming in. Special thanks to Zachary once again for filling in and making the show good and come out with a really good buy low. Zach, anything else to share? You're from the Dynasty Smart People show or something.
Yeah, Dynasty Dummies. Eventually, in like probably 3 weeks or 4 weeks or so, we're gonna start doing our rookie. I don't know. Sometimes it's a square dance. Sometimes it's a hoedown. Sometimes it's But we'll have J Mike and myself and probably Matt Foreman on.
I was going to ask if J Mike was going to be involved.
Yep, I'm pretty sure that's how it's going to happen. And so it was a hootenanny for a little while last year too.
It was a hootenanny.
And so that'll happen in a few weeks. We'll start rolling out the rookies, but. Yeah, until then, you can find me here because I'll show up. I'll probably next Wednesday. I have enough vacation that I'm taking next week off, so I'll probably show up if you'll have me here next week. So.
Yeah, I gotta stop paying you a retainer or something.
No, hey, for you, like you know me. I love talking to you, so I'll be here for free.
Oh, sure. No, I really do enjoy talking to you, though, so that's cool. Yeah, again, thanks, everyone. I think we have more comments, I guess. People are saying goodbye. I got to study for exams.
Oh,
that's actually also probably more important than what I've got to do, so thanks. I'm buying 2220. She's buying the picks you told her to buy, secretly. No problem. Thanks.
We'll keep it on the down low.
Pretty appreciate it. Yeah. See you next week. Same time, same place. Probably the exact same 2 people. Probably.
We might hear us.
You never know. Appreciate it. Bye. Thanks.